We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Karen. Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused. You have nobody guarding your potatoes.
And you know, when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what? A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua. A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
Would you classify that as a launch problem or a design problem?
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
To be a moron, to be moronical, an imbecile, like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Karen.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua. And you know, when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
I never thought anybody could forget so much so fast without a severe blow to the head.
It's good to be the king.
I'm telling you straight. It's my way or the highway. So anybody wants to walk, do it now.
Hey, I guess they're right. Senior citizens, although slow and dangerous behind the wheel, can still serve a purpose.
Take off, eh?
I'm your huckleberry.
I'm rich and I'm dead sexy.
Call me Snake.
Like the guy says, you're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna crap thunder.
I'm just a happy camper. I'm just a happy camper.
Hail to the king, baby.
It's good to be the king.
Well, it's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaverate, who run everything in the world, including the newspapers, and meet tri-annually at a secret country mansion in Colorado known as the Meadows.
So who's in this Pentaverate?
The Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up.
Lundi. It's good to have everybody around. It's good to be here with you guys.
It's good to be the king.
You know, it's just good in general. I mean, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and we're doing our best to claw our way back from the edge of destruction. But besides that, oh, the mic is very low. You know, every day I come in, the mic is set at a different setting, and if I was a more paranoid man, I would assume that it was caused by marauders or saboteurs, or perhaps a 9-year-old messing with my buttons, which it might be closer to reality. That's going to be my guess at this point. I'm just saying, I've been working very hard on some stuff for the Sexy Liberal show this weekend. There's 2 chips worth. This is like old-fashioned, it's like showing reel-to-reels. It's a lot of business in these little things right here. I'm going to be up very, very late the next couple of nights. I have no doubt. Do I look orangey? Because it was the orange before, and I took the I like lowered the color correction, took some of the gamma out, but it's, I mean, my eyes are white, so it's not. I think it just be the warmth of the, might be the warmth of my monitor, because the closer I get it, it's better. So yeah, I won't lose these. Don't worry. They've also been backed up. So yeah, there we go. But it's gonna be good. I'm excited about it. I am slightly tanned. I have been outside. We're trying to make sure we get plenty of vitamin D around here. Oh, the mullet is still happening. Oh, indeed it is. It's starting to get some length and some girth, and it's, you know, I'm getting borderline 80s cop movie.
Call me Snake.
You know what I mean? Like, it's either Pliskin or Martin Riggs, but I think it's possible. I do have a ring light. It's this big though, and it's slightly hidden by my monitors because I have monitor stuff. I have lots of monitors. This is insane. Like, the amount of things that I have to keep open to make sure that the show goes on. Again, this is what you have instead of a producer. You just basically monitor everything yourself. I'm convinced that most production people are just there in case things burst into flames. That's where most of these jobs. Cobra? I don't know that he had, in Cobra, he had a mullet. His hair was pretty high and tight in Cobra. Yeah. Although full-on Rambo wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah, maybe it's a YouTube thing that makes me look orange. Maybe they've got a new Trump filter. They're trying to even it out. This is their, the YouTube has started making everybody look orange. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. You know, they broomed out all these right-wingers off of YouTube. So to balance it out, they're making everyone else look slightly orange. And that's the trade-off. Is that it? It's gonna be very 80s, like full on holding a boombox over my head 80s, and I don't care. At this point, I mean, honestly, I'm not copying Trump. I think YouTube is enforcing this, the Trump filter. Yeah, I'm of course kidding. There is no Trump filter. My face doesn't look like an anus all of a sudden. All of a sudden, I suppose. Thank you, Philly Dana. Thank you, Arlene. I feel fine on Periscope. It's good. And hello, Twitch people. Gather your friends. Calling out to Twitch. Come on now, everybody. Such a strange weekend it was. Remember 100 years ago when Trump commuted Roger Stone's sentence? And then it turns out today that by tomorrow they actually have to file paperwork on whether they're commuting the jail time and the supervised post-prison time as well, or just the prison time, and they have to make arguments for both. So it's a mullet on both sides. It's just this part's trapped under my, yeah, it just gets trapped under the headphones. That's the thing. It may be the result of an uneven haircut I gave myself as well, or it might just be how I slept. I know, Cassie. Thank you, Cassie, for upping your Patreon. I noticed that. I got an email notification about it, and I was shocked and surprised, and that was lovely. So thank you, Cassie. Everybody, big hand to Cassie for that. Really appreciate it. I am very wispy. I look very winded. You know what I think it is, too? I think one of the reasons my hair is the way it is because I've been doing wig tests for the Sexy Liberal thing. I'll show you real quick. Hold on. So I've got, let's see. I don't want to give away all the stuff that I'm working on, but I'm going to, since we're supposed to be giving you guys some sort of behind the scenes, just to some of our beloveds in the chat room, there will be an appearance. Both of these hats will get worn in the Sexy Liberal thing. Also, this wig is I've got some styling to do on it, but it's solid. This one here, I have to like attack with spray paint and scissors, but that's gonna make an appearance. And then I've got this little guy here, which is gonna be, oh, you can't even see it because it's green. Oh my God, this is fantastic. What a horrifying thing. That's so sweet. It's like a magic trick. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. It's a green. It's completely green. This one, so you can't even see it. That's awesome. It's such a. I feel like Ernie Kovacs right now. But yeah, this is a solid. This will not be. This will be filmed on a real background. And then of course this one, which I showed earlier. So it's a lot, and I still got another one. So it's I'm up to 6 wigs for this one. The clock of invisibility. I think you mean cloak, but yeah, it does look like I'm strangling a ghost, Cassie. Yes, very much like the invisibility cloak on lab rats. What are you taking? Because I want some. I'm not taking anything. I'm basically just on caffeine at this point because of my. Oh, indeed, I use a green screen. I don't have a giant concrete scarred prison wall in my house. Thanks, Lisa. But I'm glad it doesn't really, you can't really tell. That's the amazing thing. But so today's show will be normal length. I'm going to try and keep it high and tight simply because I've got a lot of shooting to do still, and there will be some behind the scene video of that as well. Mary, thank you, and Lisa Mia Moore, thank you so much. I did make a ringtone of Nicaragua. I should start posting some of these and just like put them on my website. That'll be good. You want me to do that? I can start a little like download file.
Very bad things are happening in Nicaragua. A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
I had somebody argue yesterday with me that like, he says Nicaragua. It's super clear he says Nicaragua. I'm like, no, he said Nicaragua like 5 seconds before. For some reason, when he came back to it,
very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
That's a D. I don't care.
Once it was reluctantly aroused.
He started saying Nicaragua.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
Never stick your penis in someone's glass of water in Mexico. It's just not done.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
Okay, so there are apparently some gems. We're going to get an increasing number of those as well.
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
So there's going to be an increasing. It's such a clear D, Nancy. It is absolutely there. So, because Trump is increasingly snorting his Adderall, Sudafed, Cialis, Viagra, baby aspirin rails, he's going to increasingly start jumbling up some of his stuff. I didn't finish a thought on Saturday and made it appear like I didn't know Senator Tammy Duckworth was in the Senate, because I was making a point about how we can afford to lose some people in the Senate but not afford to lose some people in the House, and I left that kind of ambiguous. So I'm comfortable clearing that up. But it was really abundantly clear, and I made it clear at the beginning of the show. I was like operating on 4.5 hours sleep. I have an excuse, a reason even why occasionally I will blub. And when I do, if you'll notice, because we all do it, we all, we'll all juxtapose the occasional consonant. We'll sometimes flip the meaning of a word. Sometimes we'll say shit like irregardless, and it's a little irritating. But if you just roll back and say it, acknowledging your mistake as best you can if you're aware of it at the time, or if somebody makes you aware of it, like, hey, you said 100, I think you meant 1,000. You're like, oh, yeah, exactly, 1,000. Beg your pardon. That's normal. That's especially when we're all our brains outrun our lips. Sometimes that's fine. Trump has this thing though, where he constantly has to pretend he meant to say that word too. Like, his ego is so paper thin that he constantly has to, like, beg the idea that, you wanted me to say the other word as well. So I'm sure, Aaron, someone will fight that battle to the death. Hey, Glams, what's happening? Or you mean to say a virus in Iran's computers, but you say Russia's computers. That's exactly right. That's right. That's exactly right, Amy K. And somebody went, "Oh, you said this," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's not what I meant. I was speaking too fast and got carried away. I misspoke. That would be the misspoke deference." But I wouldn't go, "No, no, no. We also did it in Russia as well." I wouldn't make up a whole bullshit story to cover my flub. You know what I mean? You just go fix it. And part of that has to do with having a sound sense of self and not being in a constant panic about people's perception of you. Because here's the thing, there's a very distinct feeling that I have, and you guys know this, about how people feel about me. Because I have what is commonly referred to as a bulletproof sense of self-confidence. And it's largely based on the fact that in my life, I've been through a bunch of gnarly shit. I spent the entire 90s ice skating uphill. I spent the 70s in absolute poverty. I spent the 80s just never getting a grip on, like the first half of it, getting a grip on where I should be, becoming increasingly violent as a teenager, and then finding my footing and becoming a career professional at 15. That kind of, and then, like I said, in the 90s, just clawing for every bit I've had. And then from the 2000s on, I've had the unique experience of having a growing fan base and the awareness of me as a human being. Again, I'm not a celebrity. I'm a comedian. I work for a living. Growing, slowly but surely over time, in complete alignment with my plan to be super famous at 85. That said, I can recognize when I have momentary failures, because when I fix them or grow past them, then later on, that makes me a better person. Yeah, I made that mistake and I don't make that mistake anymore, is actually a great character trait. That's why I prefer people who grow versus people who insist they don't need to grow. Those crazy assholes. So, and Trump is one of those people. Thank you, Adriana. Blessings to you from the States and to Toronto, a city that I love. Be glad you don't talk as fast as Newfoundlanders. You would get in so much trouble. That's entirely possible. So, yeah. So that's our, that's just a reality we deal with when it comes to, life, right? We all have been through some stuff. And my confidence is based on the idea that I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I'm clear on where I am and who I am, and I know there are fixes I need to make, and I know I'm in the process of making them, like every decent human being tries to be. You know what I mean? Be at the top of your game all the time, recognize that perfection is a road, not a destination, that kind of thing. And so you can sit in a level of confidence, quite frankly, that should be a lot more common in the world than it is. But when you're in that position, you can always spot a poser. What a lot of people these days call, imposter syndrome sufferers. And Trump is distinctly that. Noel in the chat says none of us is perfect. I would argue that we're all perfect because like a wave is perfect. Like the ocean is perfect. It's never settled. It's never done. It's always in motion. It's always becoming more of itself. That idea. So anyways, hi, welcome. Let's get started. I don't want to drag this out too long. There's a bunch of you folks in here, and I don't want you to get lost in the pile. We've got there's a pile of people in here today. Look at this. And Periscope stopped giving me numbers on my little thing. Agreed, Bean Toes. Having a thick skin is very important, but the thickening of it, let's see. If you're not thick-skinned like me, we have to work on our mindfulness to achieve a healthy psyche. Yeah. If we are perfect, why do we make mistakes? Well, the mistakes are part of our perfections. It's part of our road of life. Learning is part of being a better being. Whereas if you're like, I'm the rigid perfection of some ideals can be toxic a lot of times. So thanks, Richmond. There you go. Yeah, it doesn't give me a number on this side of things. And welcome, and the Twitch folks are growing. All right, we'll get started. Let's get in here. Everybody else can just join later. Can't Stop Lying couldn't be with us today, so we send our love to him. He's doing just fine. He just let me know he couldn't make it. So everybody, be on your best behavior because we, and we'll all be in promo mode trying to make up for how great he is. So send out links. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, like the show, become a Patreon supporter. Or if you're already one, become a bigger one like Cassie. Holy smokes! Today, bless you. Let's get on with it. So okay, Trump did a roundtable today with a bunch of it was like people who've been positively affected by police actions, like by their lives saved by police. By the way, that's an innumerable amount of human beings. Okay? The fact that he feels like he needs to parade this out there is sort of pathetic on his end. But it's also him hiding behind good cops, of which, by the way, 95% of cops are solid, 5% are just awful. They need to be broomed out. They endanger everyone. There are firemen who are arsonists. You know what I'm saying? There are child care and elderly care workers who are abusive. We know this. In every situation, there will be a vast majority of people who want to do that job well, and there'll be some hangers-on who just pace themselves through it for a paycheck, and then there will be some awful people who exactly sabotage the work that they're supposed to be doing. If you never had one person like that in your work environment, then you haven't had a real job. In all seriousness. Oh, thank you, Cassie. So, yeah, there is a bell curve for every profession. Exactly right. So this idea that he's taking advantage of the fact that there's a chunk of the Antifa crowd or the anarchists, which, by the way, are not aligned with the Democratic Party. They're not. They don't even. Most of those folks don't vote at all, and if they do, they vote libertarian or green, or they write in, the great spaghetti monster. Like, honestly, that's not a political argument to be had. And most of the defunding that's going on in the states that's gained any ground is taking some of the budget for the really high-level military stuff, like tactical helicopters and tanks and all-terrain up-armored Humvees bought from the government, and spending that on mental health counselors that keep cops from having to go on calls that have nothing to do with them. That's the defund the police thing would go, just doesn't have the oomph of fund mental health services. So cops aren't doing the job that medical professionals and psychiatric professionals should be doing. So thank you, Megan. I appreciate that. I think I'm pretty sure Carl's here. He can moderate. I appreciate the volunteer. If we need one, you will absolutely be first on the list. So yeah, we don't need. We don't. There's an element in our Constitution about quartering soldiers and the idea that the military cannot police the American streets. Well, at a certain point, if cops get so much military gear, what's the difference? It's a violation of. Yes, I see you, Carl. Thank you. So it seems to overstep that constitutional boundary if the cops get too much of that stuff. So, yeah. 20 years ago, police were way overdoing things. What do you mean, when crime was way up and they were overdoing things and crime went down? So yeah. Well, prisons and jails aren't patrol people, and the weapons that prison guards have are usually conducive to the type of prisoner they have inside the walls of that particular prison. See, I'm screwing up the president being in jail. Prison. So because I'm looking over at the video. But yeah, let's just get on with this, because we will be here all day if we just have a conversation about those kind of things. Now, thanks, Ninka Crinkles. Thanks.
Nice group, some familiar faces.
Thank you.
So thank you all very much for being at the White House, very special house, very special place. I'm grateful to be joined by citizens whose
Very special house, very special place.
lives have been saved by law enforcement heroes, and that's what they are, they're heroes.
By the way, Bill Barr's sitting right here. So if we're going to start talking about law and order,
And they're being very
the Captain Double Standard.
unfairly treated over the last long period of time, but over the last few years, it's terrible what's happening.
You mean during your presidency?
Also joined by two amazing
When the cops program was actually working and was curtailing some of the more negative aspects of some police communities in the country, and it was helping deal with that while keeping other, righteous cops safe. That whole system you dismantled.
officers. South Carolina Deputy Sheriff William Kimbrough. Where's William? William?
I'm Edward Kimberly. Edward Kimberly.
William? What happened to William? Okay. Oh, okay. That's a good excuse. That's good. And
I couldn't hear why he isn't there, but way to chair a meeting.
Palm Beach County Deputy Sheriff Corey Reese. Hi, Corey.
Bueller.
Good.
Bueller. Fry.
In recent weeks, our country's police officers have been really under siege. I want to thank, first of all, I do want to thank Vice President Pence for all the work he's done on this, and in particular, Attorney General Bill Barr, because the job he's done has been amazing.
Yeah, gassing protesters so you could stand in front of a church and jog a Bible like you were trying to make it make a squeaking noise.
And it's been 24 hours a day. I guess I could say 28 hours a day, right?
No, you couldn't. There's only 24 hours a day. And anybody who works 24 hours a day, more than 3 days in a row, is going to make shitty, psychotic judgment calls.
Never ends, but it's been.
Then what do you mean? It could end really quick. Just resign.
Great job that you've both done. We appreciate it. Mike, we appreciate it very much. But our officers have been under vicious assault, and hundreds of police have been injured and several murdered. You've been reading about it just like I've been seeing it. Reckless politicians have defamed our law enforcement heroes as the enemy. They call them the...
Yeah, I could tell you care a lot about it by the flowing nature of your voice and the vim, the vigor, the verve.
enemy. They actually go and say they're the enemy. And
perceived as the enemy.
Even call them an invading army.
They're talking about the lines of soldiers that you wanted to send in everywhere.
These radical politicians want to defund and abolish the police from our nation. At first, when I first heard it, I said, well, that's just something that they're saying that doesn't, but they actually are trying to do it. You look at what's going on in Minneapolis, you look at what's going on in many Democrat-run areas.
You mean those cities with the biggest economies in the world?
But they want to defund and they want to abolish. Far-left mayors are escalating the anti-cop crusade, and violent crime is spiraling in their cities. It's all far-left cities where they have no understanding.
Where they have giant industries and lots more people. It's amazing how, Pork Knuckle, Montana doesn't have a real issue with law enforcement because Barney Fife is down to one bullet.
Of what has to be done. They don't have a clue. And
they don't have a clue. None of these people know how to run a big city.
I will say that we put on a very powerful rule and law that you get 10 years, you knock down a monument if it's...
That was already the law. I signed a very powerful, I don't know if you know this, very powerful executive order that said the law is exactly what it was before.
A federal monument, you go to jail for 10 years.
Yeah, that's the law.
And if it's anything else, we tell them we work with the states to help them. But if you do anything where it's a federal monument, and there are a lot of them up there, and nobody's been attacked. Nothing's been attacked since we did. 10 years in jail, monument or statue.
Well, if you don't count the fact that some of your supporters tore down a statue of Frederick Douglass, who I hear is doing a great job, by the way.
In one recent week in New York City, this is hard to believe, shootings were up 358%.
Really? Now he's all about the percentages going up as an extraordinary number. Based on what? 358%, according to what? When everyone was inside?
And yet they spend all their time, they want to do Black Lives Matter signs outside.
Black Lives Ladder. That's the after part? Or is that better than Black Lives Former Black Lives Ladder? Or can you get a Black Lives Ladder? It's kind of like, if you're doing some roofing, want to support the cause?
Out of Trump Tower, they ought to spend their time doing something else, because I'll tell you what, 358% increase in shootings in New York. Last month, over 300 people were shot. NYPD retirements have quadrupled, and they're going up even further. And New York
No, they're not. They're on pace.
City is out of control. Unfortunately, my place, I love it, but it's out of.
No, you don't. It's not your place. You live in Washington, D.C. You're registered to vote in Florida in a place where you have no home, which is illegal. You left New York. You can't even, you and your children can't have a charity in the state of New York because you cannot be trusted with charitable funds.
Controller was doing.
But I love that place. I love it.
So well. And Rudy Giuliani, whether you like Rudy or not, he did a great job. He was a great mayor in the history of New York. Murders in Atlanta are up 133% compared to the same period last year. And one of the victims was an 8-year-old girl, and we've had younger than that in Chicago last weekend. In the last 2 weeks, 105 Americans were shot in Philadelphia and Minneapolis. The city.
Minneapolis, Jesus Christ. Are we going to talk about Ulysses S. Grant again?
Voted to disband.
Minneapolis. It's the smaller version of Annapolis.
And the police department and cut it way down, but disbanded.
They're going to move to a county-based system.
Ultimately, the radical politicians are waging war on innocent Americans. That's what you're doing when you play with the police. My administration is pro-safety, pro-police, and anti-crime, and I will say.
Yeah, so am I. So's Biden. So's every sensible person in the government. This is not a radical notion. Even the places that want to defund the cops are trying to take some of the overreaching funds from police, which are for giant SWAT outfits where they are not needed, and put those funds in areas where you can deal with people who are having mental health episodes or are suicidal or trying to commit suicide by cop, or any of these areas where you could talk somebody down because they're Americans. They're not. That's why we don't have police. We don't have military police our streets, because you don't want them killing citizens like they're on a battlefield. Because even the criminals aren't the enemy. That's why we have a justice system.
I just see a new number came
system part.
From Chicago. This weekend was a scourge.
Oh my God, we're back to scourge, everybody. Hey! Didn't he? I think he's trying to double up, though, because he's already said scourge in this room. Scourge. Criminy.
This weekend was, I guess, 20 people killed and many, many shootings. Many, many shootings. Far worse.
Trump's America.
Than the last week.
Mm-hmm. Far worse than under Obama. That's weird.
So things are happening that nobody's ever seen happening.
Well, who's president right now? Who could handle those things? I mean, apparently you could handle these things so quickly.
Happen in cities that are liberally run. I call them radical lib.
I call them radical lip. You mean radical lib?
Yet.
And yet, I don't believe so. I don't know.
Many shootings. Many, many shootings. Far worse than the last week. So things are happening that nobody's ever seen happen in cities that are liberally run. I call them radical lib.
Radical lip. I think that was supposed to be radical lib.
And yet they'll go
And yet,
and march on areas and rip everything down in front of them. If that's what you want for a country, you probably have to vote for Sleepy Joe Biden because he doesn't know what's happening.
yeah, remember all those coast to coast riots we had under Obama? Remember how H1N1 made us shut down the entire country for 6 months? Remember when Ebola came in and nobody could go anywhere for months and movie theaters were going to go out of business forever? Remember that? Me neither.
But you're not going to have it with me.
Yes, the rug behind him is red. They changed the color of it so he doesn't look as orange. They literally changed the color of the white balance in it. It really makes the blue in his tie pop, though.
So we've been very strong on law enforcement. We'll be doing things that you'll be.
By the way, I saw the Radical Lips at CBGB's. It was one of their first gigs. It was off the charts. I mean, they sold out on their second record, but the first one was pure punk.
I think very impressed with. Numbers are going to be coming down, even if we have to go in and take over cities, because we can't let.
Yeah, that's what you do. That sounds like America. Yeah, let's have the federal government go in and take over cities. Republicans, knock yourselves out. Like,
happen when you have 20 people killed, 22 people killed in one weekend in Chicago, and you have 88 shootings.
Yeah, where do the guns come from?
It's not even conceivable. That's worse than Afghanistan. I hate to.
No, it is not. Do you think there's regular reporting of the number of people killed in Afghanistan? The statistics they keep, I mean, honestly, that office, they must work overtime.
That's worse than any war zone that we're in?
No, it's not.
By a lot.
No, it isn't.
Them look like tame places by comparison.
Tame places. Easy with the rough language there.
And so we're not going to let it go on. We're not supposed to wait for them to call, but they don't call.
Aw, he's been waiting by the phone. Hello, I've just got to let you know.
We've asked Chicago, would you like us to go in and help? And they don't want to say anything. And
I call him up and I go, Billy, don't you lose my number? Because you're not anywhere that I can find you.
We've called many of the cities. Would you like us to go and help? We've done a great job in Portland. Portland was totally out of control, and they went in, and I guess we have many people right now in jail, and we very much quelled it. And if it starts again, we'll quell it again very easily. It's not hard to do.
The great quelling.
If you know what you're doing. So I just want to thank everybody for
the big roll-in Portland. You guys remember that, right? When Portland was just off the chain. We're like, if I heard one more story coming out of Portland, you know? Oh, I was like, God, can't even think. There's so many. Okay, yeah, enough with the Portland. Yeah, he called 8675309.
Being here, I'd maybe ask Vice President Pence to say a couple of words, and then I'd like Bill Barr to say something, and we'll go around the room. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have one of these round table sessions where people gripe, and then I'll hide behind some soldiers and cops and pretend I give a shit. And then when the real talking starts about coming up with a solution to it, as opposed to just bitching, he'll get up and leave. Because that's what he does every time. Honestly, every time he does one of these stupid things. They go around the table, everybody tells something. They got like 8 people who have horrible stories, bless their hearts. He hasn't had one of these people who died. You know, it's a good point, Darkfay. He hasn't had a round table with people who've lost relatives to COVID-19. Has he? No, he hasn't. He had one with soldiers, one with Southcom. He's having one with cops. And then as soon as you get to the point where like, oh, this was horrible. That's a horrible thing to happen to you. Oh, and this is a horrible thing. Well, we got to not let that. We could fix that so quickly, but we can't. Because they don't call back and thank you very much, bye. And then he just walks down the hallway. What's the point of a round table if you don't have a discussion about policy and possibility? But this is obviously just a photo op, which is why it's out in the hallway.
Very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's
an honor to sit downwind from you.
It's a real privilege to be here with the law enforcement officers who are gathered here and families whose lives have been impacted so profoundly by the courageous efforts of men and women in law enforcement. I can assure you that while some are talking about defunding the police under this president and this administration, we're going to defend the police. And we're going to back the blue because we understand.
What a token. Hey, do you mind if I borrow a piece of paper? Thanks. Wait, you guys didn't see that. Hold on. Literally, Trump just took a piece of paper off of his. It's like he was eating his snacks. Hold on, I have to expand the window so you guys can see this. This is ridiculous. Hold on. Drag this down a little bit. Watch this.
Lives have been impacted so profoundly, but
he's looking at his notes or something that he's got there, like he forgot his homework.
Courageous efforts.
And he's looking off of Pence's test.
Of men and women in law enforcement. I can assure you that while some are talking about defunding the police under this president and this administration, we're going to defend the police. And we're going to back.
By the way, as a Democrat, I do not support the concept of abolish the police. And I believe that defunding the police is a terrible way to say fund mental health services, end homelessness, provide housing, make all non-narcotic drugs that, with the exception of, I guess, driving while you're using them, legal, and provide people with treatment as opposed to putting them in jail for users and the like, that kind of thing. And if somebody's having a mental health episode or in a situation where they're threatening suicide to themselves, cops should be the second people you send. You might need them, but you send somebody who isn't wearing a flak vest first.
The blue, because
demilitarize the police is a much better function.
Understand that while tragedies happen,
and would go way further, and it would also neuter this whole argument. Swear to God, if all the people who are for defund the police literally went to demilitarize the police, everybody, like that 64% that goes, I know defund the police means not, abolishing the police. It means, restructure and whatever. They wouldn't have to fight all that. You wouldn't hand the victory to these dickheads. You would simply be able to defend that. You go demilitarize them. We don't need the military. We don't need TAC helicopters and machine guns mounted on vehicles.
And we'll always look for ways that we can improve public safety.
And here's a good way. Oh, you always look for ways to improve public safety? Okay, stop straw purchases of guns.
The president's taken steps and taken executive action to provide new resources to improve public safety and law enforcement around the country. I want to assure you that you have a president who knows what the people gathered around this table know, is that most of the men and women who put on the uniform of law enforcement every day are the best people in this country. They risk their lives every day to make a difference in our communities, just like they've made a difference in.
There's a bit that Lenny Bruce used to do about police brutality. I recommend everybody find it on YouTube and watch it.
All of your lives. And so I want to thank you all. I want to thank you for being here at this, for this conversation, because the American people.
Not a conversation. You're going to go around the table. There's not going to be any crosstalk. Everybody's going to read a prepared statement. They've been handpicked for this situation, and then he's going to leave.
Will greatly benefit by being reminded of the incredible contributions that our law enforcement community makes each and every day, and I appreciate your willingness to tell that story.
By the way, the little kid talking during this whole thing is the best part. Hear the little one?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say what an honor it is for me to serve under a president who is such a strong supporter of law enforcement.
Yeah, like you mean like the upper echelon of the FBI and the men and women in the intelligence community in the FBI who intercept wiretaps inside the country from Russian operatives. You mean all the heads of the FBI, even the ones he's put in place that he constantly craps on?
I've said repeatedly that, to my mind, there is no more noble profession
Thank you.
in our country than serving as a law enforcement officer. The police put their lives and well-being on the line every day for us, and their jobs have never been more difficult than it is today.
Well, yeah, with you as their ultimate boss and him at the top of the ticket, it's a nightmare.
Today we suffer many unprecedented social ills. Kids growing up without fathers, alien.
We're venturing into. I think we found out where Tucker Carlson's head writer went.
Young, angry men, gangs engaged in the most brutal kinds of violence, increasing mental illness and homelessness, and a drug
But enough about the administration.
epidemic, inflicting casualties beyond anything that we've experienced in a major war.
That's not true. Crime has been going down since the 90s. There's a lot of gnarly stuff happening, and we get to see it because we have 24-hour news cycles and social media right now. But statistically, even with the bump up that's gone on during the Trump administration, crime overall has been going down.
And
even with the 2008 crash.
Increase in sexual assaults and
yeah, of course we have gangs. Haven't you heard them, in the streets? Like, I can barely sleep without, when you're a jet, all the way. I'm like, come on! Trying to sleep!
Exploitation. You name it. And who is expected to deal with all of this?
You're supposed to, but you're too busy letting felons out of jail.
As other institutions fail and abdicate their responsibility, who is
Oh, you really want to say that? He's sitting right across from me.
Who is expected to stand their ground and pick up the pieces?
The police and fire departments and social services and state and local governments.
Police are.
But, I mean, are we talking about COVID-19 now, or?
And that's why I say their job, the job we ask them to do today, has never been more challenging.
Almost as challenging as the person who brings me dessert every day because I never skip.
I believe it's important to understand.
Thank you for the hearts.
And that just like any other institution, there's always room for improvement. And
yeah, you could resign. Therefore, I'm tendering my resignation.
The past several decades, there's unquestionably been a lot of progress and reforms.
Yeah, and then it all ground to a halt 3 years ago. Weird.
In policing.
Yeah. And your boss dismantled all of those programs.
Improved policing.
Yeah. States and local governments have continued to do the work, but on a federal level in 2017, that asshole across the table from you dismantled the COPS program that was put in place after Ferguson by the Obama-Biden administration to solve these issues, and it was working.
Life for the officers, their families, and their communities. We have the most professional police in the world. Now, obviously, the event in Minneapolis was ghastly, and I haven't heard anyone attempt to defend it.
Have you talked to Tucker Carlson's fired head writer recently?
And it has rightly brought about,
because you're gonna,
an urge to make sure we continue reforming and we finish the job. And I think that law enforcement understands and agrees that the concerns of the African American community regarding excessive use of force must be addressed. Mm-hmm. But we also have to be careful and not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Dude, the baby's right there. There's an African American baby right across the room from you. What a weird. Did you not know? Did they not clear who was going to be with you at the event when you wrote this shit?
So extremist reactions like defund the police are trying to pull us in exactly the
demilitarize the police.
Opposite direction of where we have to go. We have to give law enforcement more support.
Was that Trump? I can't tell if that was a baby crying or, Trump.
More training and resources. And I think the executive order...
More training, sure. Resources? I need to know what you mean by resources. We're talking about, like, lighter weight bulletproof garments, more, non-lethal weapons to be used, secondary deployment cars. So the first car that shows up has non-lethals, except for their lethals are in, like, the trunk in case shit hits the fan. But the second car that rolls up can have lethal force in case they need backup and it's really dangerous. We're stopping straw man purchases, making sure that the handle and grip and trigger mechanism of an AR-15, which can be sold by itself, and all you do is add a barrel to it. Essentially, it becomes a gun with no tracing marks on it, no serial number. Like, get rid of shit like that, so cops don't have to worry about every window they walk up to. By the way, anytime you're, like, in a cop's suck zone in your own tiny little head, go on YouTube and start searching for cop shot while ... Just do that. Just do a big search for that. And you'll see cops walking up on somebody that they just pulled over for speeding and just get shot in the chest through the window before a word is even spoken. And after the 10th one of those, you'll go, I think I'd be a little nervy walking up to every window, even if I was trained and professional about this, especially if I just saw my partner get a bullet through the neck.
The president signed last month strikes exactly.
But again, demilitarize the police would go a long way towards solving a bunch of these problems. And also the mentality of cops shouldn't be a military one either. So when people transfer over, you shouldn't get automatic, when you move from the military, unless you were maybe an MP, it shouldn't bump you up into the police force and be considered a plus for you to have been in the military necessarily. It's a good move over in theory, but ultimately what it is you've been trained to be a killer who recognizes the enemy in a battlefield, and now you're on your home turf in a neighborhood 6 miles from where you live. Might not be the best mentality to have when you're on the streets patrolling.
The right balance. It's supportive of the police, and it also addresses legitimate concerns about excessive force. So our nation needs to gain a renewed appreciation of the noble work done by our police officers.
Well, you're not helping. You suck at this. You're just hiding behind their skirt. You're using the thin blue line as camouflage. You don't actually give a shit, or you would let the law play itself out through the courts instead of letting Roger Stone out.
In protecting our communities. And I thank the president for convening this roundtable to highlight the good work done by our men and women in blue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll go around the room, and maybe you could introduce yourself and explain exactly what's going on.
Why am I here? What is this room? Do you know who he was who was just talking? My Adderall is starting to fade.
An incredible story, please.
Hi, my name is Kamira Boyd. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. Well, on June 11th, 2019, my baby started choking on breast milk, and the first thing I started to do was just run out the house and jump in the car. While leaving out of my neighborhood, Officer Kimbrough came. He was coming into the neighborhood, and he immediately
I'm going to skip this part. I know. I can't, don't. I'm trying to. There's 340 million people in this country, and a lot of people have had interactions with the police. Oh, bless her heart. I'm glad her baby's okay. I'm just leaving there. And the cop,
2019, while I was patrolling the unincorporated district of Summerville, South Carolina, I came across Kamira and her grandmother speeding in a car. I conducted a traffic stop on that vehicle, and as soon as those vehicles stopped, Lady later identified it. Was it your grandmother, Kamira?
It was my stepmom.
Oh, your stepmom had jumped out of the vehicle and was frantic and said, my baby, she can't breathe. And I kind of stepped back and I said, what? And, you know,
I can't. I gotta move. I gotta jump ahead. Oh, kiddo. Yeah. By the way, I have no problem with any of these folks. I think Trump is just drafting behind them, trying to create his own narrative around this.
Bill will call, Vice President will call, I'll call. You'll call leaders of these cities, Democrat leaders. And we don't care if they're Democrat or not. They happen to be in every case. But we'll call them and we'll say, do you need help? And they'll say no. They said, but you just had 40 people shot and many people killed this weekend. And they'll say, no, we're okay.
We don't, yeah. No, they don't say, no, we're okay. They say, no, we don't need military troops on the streets of American cities.
I'll say, what's that?
Unless you're going to stop the cross-state line illegal gun sales, which is what the ATF and the FBI do, you know, the people that DOJ shits on nonstop these days.
All about. And we're tired of those answers. We're tired of those answers. So thank you. To me, that's astonishing. Thank you very much, bro. Please.
My name is Kenneth Bearden. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. And
Kentucky. Grew up in Peaksville, Kentucky. Went to high school at Franklin County High for a year, and then I moved to Chicago to get a real accent, but spent most of my life in Kentucky.
I'm here today because I'm a man in recovery. At the age of 11 years old, I used substances for the first time. And
yeah, anyways, yeah, substances, 11 years old. Yeah.
By
what?
the end of that summer, I had overdosed 7 times already. I'm one of them people that once I put a minor mood.
He's staring at Pascal like, where did you get these people?
Altering substance in my body, I cannot stop. I did not stop using alcohol or drugs until the age of 24. And through that time, at the age of 11 to 24, I have overdosed over 30 times.
Jesus, dude. By the way, I have friends in Kentucky who went through the exact same thing he did. Okay, unless he's going to say a cop saved his life,
and
which is entirely possible.
At least a dozen of them times I've had.
Where they actually put him in in rehab instead of prison.
Police officers there on site administering Narcan, saving my life.
And a lot of them afraid to get a whiff of fentanyl from people who die in their car. I don't know what this lady's story is, but she there with them? Or no, she's there. She got her own story.
I have no recollection of the accident. My first memory was a policeman reaching through the shattered window and checking for a pulse. And I was in and out of consciousness, and he continuously urged me to stay awake and stay with him.
Yeah, that's what cops do. We appreciate that, by the way. Again, I have no problem with any of these people's stories, and what they've gone through, I'm sure, is horrifying, horrible, difficult, painful. The cops that interacted with them were terrific. Not the point. The point is, Trump is hiding behind these folks, trying to pretend that a lot of this bullshit isn't his fault.
Good.
And our church watched over the last few weeks as the way that our police officers were treated all over the country. And it was all over the news about how they are such, they've been demonized and disgraced and dishonored. And we,
the 3 Ds I like to say,
got our heads together and thought, what can we do as a small church in a small town to honor?
So we have exorcised the demon.
Our police, and to let our voice be known. Their voice is loud, that blame all this on police officers. The voice of small town America is seldom heard. So we just set up a little ceremony. We went through the chief of police and the public safety director, and we asked them if we could hold a public ceremony on the steps of the courthouse on Main Street in Jonesboro.
Great. And did you write a hymn for the thing? This is terrific. Here's a good idea. sit down with the city council and restructure the situation where the police in your area have to go to certain calls that they shouldn't have to be dealing with. That should be mental health facilities providing those services. Undo Reagan's dismantling of the mental health institutions in our country so that cops don't have to pick that up anymore, and also provide a step forward for gear that they would need, that they can wear all day like food service people do, where they don't have to worry about needles and blood and snot giving them a disease.
On July 4th,
which is one of the big reasons why cops tend to tase and shoot more than they did in the 90s. Thanks,
at 11
Deeds.
o'clock in the morning, and present each member of the Jonesboro Police Department with a check for $1,000. And we did that.
Both of them.
It shouldn't have, but it made national news. I think small towns all over America feel like we do, that we want our voice to be heard, that we love law enforcement, our local police officers, and if we can do something to support them and encourage them, then that's what we want to do. And we feel very good about what we did.
Well, that's a great story. I thought you were going to tell me that they wanted to arrest you for giving them a couple of bucks, and they deserve it very much. But, you know, I've heard the other end of those stories also. You're not allowed to do anything.
That's not true.
And you're right about it. They've been...
If you want to write if you see a cop and you want to write him a check, go ahead. Nobody's going to stop you, especially if it's an organization that, yeah.
What the police have been going through over the last number of years, in all fairness, it's been starting, but it's never been like this, has it? It's never been like this. It's
yes, with you as president, it's the worst it's ever been.
It's crazy. It's
crazy.
Crazy, and they'll find out. It'll go the opposite direction, unfortunately, at some point. It'll go absolutely opposite when they see, and you're going to have some defunding and abolishing, and you'll see numbers like nobody would ever believe. And they're going to say, let's get our police back as soon as we can, right? But that's great what you just said. That's a fantastic thing.
Yes, sir. We were thankful that it's a small town. And
what, did it shrink? What do you mean thankful? You live there.
Small police department. It was only 23 employees. So it wasn't that big a hit.
That's a lot.
It was a blessing to them.
That's a lot. That's a good job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I've already heard, I got a note written to the church that didn't identify the officer, but said I'm an 83-year-old widower. And one of the officers brought by a sum of money and gave to me to put back to pay my utility bills this winter, and told me it was a gift from Lighthouse Baptist Church. That's what one officer, and it's just a week ago, but that's what one officer did with that gift that we gave.
That's great. Great stories. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to forget it as soon as I turn my head. And by the way, I know my hair is crazy right now, but what the hell is up with his head? Like, it's full-on, like, wife of televangelist hair today he has.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, for having us. My name is Debbie Wisner. I'm local. I live in Maryland. And my story's not very dramatic. It's just one that my purse was stolen. My purse. People have it happen to them. My credit cards were canceled, and my cell phone, we put a special note on it that said, if found, please call this number. Nothing came of it. A couple nights later, in the middle of the night at midnight, the phone rings, and a gentleman says, I found your phone. I have your phone. Would you offer a reward for it? And I said, of course. My husband said, are you nuts? And he said, I'll bring it to you. I gave him my address.
Not so much a story about how great cops are, but how stupid some people are.
And hung up the phone and called.
Because that's what you do. That's what you do. If your purse has been stolen and your phone is missing in it, and it calls you in the middle of the night and asks you for your address, you give it, don't you?
Our police department, because that's who we turn to when there's a situation.
That we've started ourselves.
My husband had another idea. He wanted to do something else, but I said, no, we're going to let the police do this. There's no shooting tonight. So
Probably would have been good. Probably, it sounds like a tough guy. Probably would have
save the cops some money there or something?
The police came, they gave us their cell phone number, they went away around the corner and they said, when he pulls up, give us a ring, we'll be there. Sure enough, he pulled up, he comes out of the car, it's 2 o'clock in the morning now.
Yeah. What kind of an idiot says, yeah, come over now?
And the police, 2 squad cars were there immediately, which is what we need in our communities.
Right.
And they checked him out. He did, in fact, find the phone, and I gave him a reward and thanked my police officers, and I'm grateful that we have community policemen that are willing to come at 2 in the morning and do this silly thing.
Wait a minute. They just bugged the dude? Yeah, cops work at night, and you dragged 2 of them off because you couldn't wait until, like, hey, that'd be great. I could totally use my phone. Do you mind, because I don't know who you are, meeting me in the parking lot of the police station tomorrow? You know, so 2 cops don't have to pull themselves away from staking out a rapist or a murderer so that they can watch me Karen my way into getting my phone back. Jesus, that's it. That's the whole story. This sucks. Pascal, you're fired. Who got these people together? Probably Jared.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's ridiculous.
2 in the morning. Why did he? That's a strange time. So you
No, why did she? Why did he? Nothing.
found him to be okay, even though he came at 2 in the morning.
He was probably walking along, found it because he was at a bar or something on his way out, and he's like, "Oh, there's a purse right here. The money's been taken, but the phone's still here. Oh shit. Oh, that's funny. I wonder who this is. Hello? Yeah, I have your phone. You want it? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can. What's your address? I'll drop it off on my way home because I'm a nice guy. Cool. Hey, while you're at it, psychopath, since I've been drinking, how about you just set 2 cops up on the corner, and then so that just in case, as I'm rolling up, I get nervous because I don't know if you're telling me the truth, and I bring my gun with me because we're in a open carry state, and your husband's screaming expletives in the background, and so there can be a nice mistake, and the cops think I'm there to kill you, and they can just shoot me. How about that? Okay, cool. Yeah, no, you hang up first. Okay, bye. Okay, forget.
He came at 2 in the morning, but so were our policemen.
Yeah, no, they were there.
And that's the only...
They were there. They were so there. Now, they normally park outside my house, and because of all the, my husband, he like whores. He's into like, it's a rough one. But he brings in stuff, male, female, animal, vegetable, mineral. He'll do anything to anything, honestly. And only about 50% of it is illegal in our state. But the cops will roll up.
The reason we were okay with it.
Good. Thank
you. Yeah, okay, because we were up.
Very much.
Thank you.
Great story. That's amazing.
Thank you. Really nice. Please.
Mr. President, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
By the way, I'm still dealing with choking on breast milk. I'm still dealing with it. I'm trying not to. Still. Right?
I, like many others, we support you in supporting our law enforcement officers and providing safe communities.
Cool,
Thank
me
you, Mr.
too.
Vice President, for being here as well, your hard work. And obviously to the Attorney General Barr, thank you. And to law enforcement.
Thank you for letting Roger Stone go after he lied to law enforcement and tampered with a witness and threatened people's lives in an attempt to get them to change their statement in front of the federal authorities. No one is more law and order than you, sir.
Officers that are here and their families, and to your staff, Mr. President. Although it shouldn't matter, Mr. President, I'm kind of a unique bird, if you will. I'm a Democrat. I'm an elected official. I'm African American. I have 8 years or 12 years of experience in the Georgia House of Representatives, 8 years as county exec. And as county exec, I've had to manage a very large, probably one of the largest police departments in the state of Georgia. But I've also had the unfortunate experience of having to meet with family members who lost a loved one from a police shooting. That was probably the most difficult part of my job. But I've also had to deal on the other side where I lost 2 police officers in one night, among several others I lost, but I lost 2 in one night. By the way, they happened to have been African American. And going to meet with their family members as well, young wives with young babies, and having to experience seeing them lose a loved one. It's nothing anybody would want to do. But I can tell you this, Mr. President, by and large, most law enforcement officers, those men and women who honorably wear their uniforms each and every day.
Agreed. Again, I don't have a problem with what this dude's saying, per se. At least he knows where his cell phone is.
Please.
Good afternoon, President Trump, Vice.
Oh, we've got a visible cross. This, I don't know if she's using the Kayleigh McEnany standard or if it really means something to her. We'll find out.
President Pence and Mr. Barr and distinguished guests, I thank you for this opportunity to share our family's story. 8 years ago, our 15-year-old daughter was trafficked by MS-13 gang members.
Good Lord. And by the way, of all the stories they're going to come up with, what's the statistical probability of someone being trafficked by MS-13 gang members? But Trump found that needle in that haystack.
She was trafficked over a 1.5-year time period throughout the DMV area.
The DMV, okay.
Law enforcement
They were using the DMV?
played a fundamental role in the rescue and the recovery of our daughter, and were also vital in the protection and safety of our family, both then and now. Initially, the officers handling our case, albeit well-intentioned, were not trauma-informed and not able to differentiate a runaway teen from a victim of human trafficking.
Yikes.
As you go back home.
By the way, that little baby right there is super adorable and makes this entirely worth watching.
We're still there with you, and we're willing to come and do all we can to help.
He was one of the cops, I guess, with them? Okay.
Grandson. I will never forget it, and I will always be grateful. And I would also like to add that I'm a state employee. I work in the city of Atlanta, and I have seen a drastic change in law enforcement coverage in that area. And I see the difference when law enforcement is not visible on the streets. So we've had our challenges there.
Okay. And the cop,
And so I went outside to see what was going on, and the young lady to my left here was on the floor clutching the child in her arms. She was screaming for help. The child was crying, and there was a man standing above them grabbing at her and the child. Now, my first thought was it was a domestic situation, but clearly there was something wasn't right with the situation, so I separated him, and she said that she doesn't know him and he was trying to take her child. And more people came pouring out of their rooms and were saying the same thing, so I immediately got him separated. I had him sit down in the hallway, and I had someone else call Tampa PD, and they arrived, and at that point I just was keeping the peace between everybody because there were some people getting quite aggressive, with him. It's not, the right time. You have to let law enforcement handle it. It's not a time to take matters in your own hands. So at that point,
yeah, when there's a cop watching,
it's mostly peacekeeping. But I didn't think it would be as big of a deal as it ended up being until the next day some people in the hallway were like, the video's gone viral. It's like 1 million views, and then I'm getting a call saying I'm invited to the White House. I mean, it was completely unexpected.
yeah, because it's completely average compared to what else is going on. But a great little kid. Look at that. Just miserable. Like a good, like a little boy at anything formal.
It's not too fun. He's still dealing with it. I don't really want to speak on the case because it's still open. But the main thing I wanted to address is
Does Trump still have his mic open and that's why it doesn't work? Okay, I think there'll be questions.
All they've done. You don't see that if you watch the news for the most part. You don't.
Yeah, you do. It's all local news, though. I would say cable news, like Fox just floods the zone with it so it looks one-sided. But MSNBC and CNN and any of the cable outlets need to do these broader stories more often to remind people. I would say that's a good idea, so it doesn't look all lopsided to the people who watch there. But if you watch local news, they have these stories all the time.
Things like this, but they've done a fantastic job. Everybody here is a witness to that, and we see it a lot. The Attorney General sees it every day, but we see it a lot, and I just want to thank the various police departments.
Thanks, Diana. I didn't know what you meant by the DMV. I was like, was she getting her license? What's happening?
Law enforcement, they've done an
Yeah, his hair is very lopsided. I think he passed out and they just woke him up for this.
incredible job in this country. Where they're allowed to do their work, they really do a job. So thank you all very much for being here. Good luck with your case. And really, terrific job, everybody. Terrific job. Thank you.
Thank you.
From the media like to ask anybody a question here? Steve, go ahead, please.
The media like to ask anybody.
Well, I was going to ask you about, you're in a good place with Dr. Fauci. There's been some criticism of him over the last couple of days. Do you still appreciate his advice?
Well, I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci. I've had for a long time, right from the beginning. I find him to be a very nice person. I don't always agree with him. I closed the border, as you know, to China. I did the ban on China, heavily infected, and we saved tens of thousands of lives, and Dr. Fauci will admit that it was a good decision. It was very early. That was in January, long before it was thought of as the right thing to do. I also closed the borders to Europe when Italy and a couple of other countries over there, France certainly, Spain, they were having a lot of problems. I closed the borders very early.
Yeah, tell us about the UK. Why'd you leave that one open even when the cases were going up there and they were going down in Italy?
Shortly after I did with China. So we saved a lot of lives. So we made a lot of good decisions. But no, I get along with him very well. I like him personally. Yeah, please.
President, are you going to pardon Michael Flynn?
I can't hear you.
Are you going to pardon Michael Flynn?
Well, he's got a case going on right now. I think he would, I don't know this for a fact, but I think he's doing very well with respect to his case. I hope that he's going to be able to win it. And I don't have a decision to make until I find out what's going to happen. But I think he was persecuted. He didn't lie. Turned out he didn't lie. The
Yes, he did.
FBI said he didn't lie.
No, they said he lied.
I think he was persecuted, and nobody understands what's going on.
By the way, they didn't do orange makeup on his forehead. I don't know if you noticed that. Or he mopped his forehead before he came out and wiped it off. But his cheeks
With
are
the
orange.
Justice Department, which is so capable, they
See what I mean? See what I'm saying there, guys? You see the color? Is it just me?
decided to take a view on it, and they decided that he should be. They were going to drop the case. So he's.
No, they weren't. Bill Barr was going to drop the case. The judge was like, I've seen the evidence. Why the shit would you drop this case?
Right now, meaning his lawyers and him, are embroiled in hopefully the final stages of
Him getting ready to go to jail?
what should have never happened. They treated him very unfairly, as they have many people on this side. Yeah, please.
President Trump, you've said many times that the number of coronavirus cases is going up because testing is increasing.
That's right.
Do you acknowledge that it's
That's right. That's why.
going up for other reasons too? For example, that it's actually spreading? And what are you going to do to stop the spread?
Well, you know that we have one of the lowest mortality rates anywhere. If you know, Biden and Obama stopped their testing. They just stopped it. You probably know that. I'm sure you don't want to report it. But they stopped testing.
Stop testing what? Sorry, do you not realize you've been president for 3.5 years? Do you realize COVID-19 comes from 2019? It comes from the 19 in 2019? Do you realize who was president during that time? How many fingers am I holding up?
Right in the
What? What is he? What?
middle, they just went, no more testing.
They just stopped the testing. They call you and make you stop testing? What are you talking about?
And on a much lesser problem than the problem that we have, obviously.
Huh? Okay, wait. I can't be hearing this right. This is just goofy. What?
People on this side. Yeah, please.
President Trump, you've said many times that the number of coronavirus cases is going up because testing is increasing.
That's right.
Do you acknowledge that it's going up for other reasons too.
Notice she was trying to like get him to go, no, that's ridiculous. What I mean is, and he actually went, yep.
For example, that it's actually spreading. And what are you going to do to stop the spread?
Well, you know that we have one of the lowest mortality rates anywhere. If you know Biden and Obama stopped their testing, they just stopped it. You probably know that. I'm sure you don't want to report it. But they stopped testing. Right in the middle, they just went, no more testing. And on a much lesser problem than the problem that we have, obviously, with respect to this is the worst thing that's happened since probably 1917. This is
Oh my God, 1918, you dick.
very bad. All over the world, it's 188 countries right now. But no, we test more than anybody
I thought it was 189. Did we lose a country? Did it explode? What happened?
by far. And when you test, you create cases. So we've
Whoa. Whoa. When you test, you create cases.
right in the middle, they just went, no more testing. And on a much lesser problem than the problem that we have, obviously, with
He means H1N1, which they had a handle on, and Obama got the vaccine in December. The outbreak came in May. You're already 8 months behind the window to get it done.
respect to this is the worst thing that's happened since probably 1917. This is very bad. All over the world, it's 188 countries right now. But no, we test more than anybody by far. And when you test, you create cases. So we've created cases. I can tell you some countries, they test when somebody walks into a hospital sick or walks into maybe a doctor's office, but usually a hospital. That's the testing they do, so they don't have cases. Whereas we do, we have all of these cases. So, you know,
That's not true at all. That part's just moronic. This is like how, okay, it's one thing to think that like somebody misspeaks. We talked about this at the beginning of it, even if you want to jag on it like somebody, like some of our maggots in the chat room want to go on and defend this idiot. But it's one thing to misspeak about the idea, and then it's entirely something else to be incapable of understanding simple concepts like tests find cases. And most of the countries, by the way, that have gotten a handle on it, tested far greater than they actually had infection rates. They kept their positive rate at around 5%. 5% of the tests they were getting back came back positive. And as far as the mortality rate, South Korea lost less than 300 people. There's not a single state with even close to the same population as South Korea, mix and match states as you want. Texas, Florida, New York, California, Seattle, any of the big states, Georgia, where they've kept the death rate below 300.
a double-edged sword. At the same time, we have the lowest mortality, or just about the lowest mortality in the world.
No, we don't. We're a fifth of the cases, which means a bunch of other states, countries, especially like South Korea, for example, are not even charting.
We're doing a great job. We're doing very well with vaccines, and we're doing very, very
No, we're not. The whole world's working on a vaccine. It takes as long as it takes.
well with therapeutics.
They're fast-tracking it. It doesn't mean it's going to work.
And I think we're going to have some very good information coming out soon. But we have the best and certainly the biggest, by far the biggest testing program anywhere in the world.
The Abbott test that he uses at the White House has a 50-50 false positive rate on it. It's a coin flip. It's why there were a bunch of people in the White House, even though they test regularly, who have gotten sick.
Tested China or Russia or any of the larger countries, if you just tested India as an example, the way we test, you'd see numbers that would be very surprising. Brazil.
Yeah. You mean countries that have 5 times the population we have, or 5 times the land mass?
Too. You know, Brazil's going through a big problem, but they don't do testing like we do. So we do.
Yeah, wonder why. The leader of Brazil is a Trump fan. He thinks it's all BS. He's got it.
The testing, and by doing the testing, we have tremendous numbers of cases. If we didn't do the, as an example, we've done 45 million tests. If we did half that number, you'd have half the cases, probably.
No, you wouldn't. The positivity rate would be equal to the vast number of tests that you're doing. So if you have 45 million cases, or 45 million tests, but the positivity rate is 5%, it will stay at that if you've managed it, even if you blow up the number of tests. You go 45 million, 50 million, 60 million, you still have 5% positivity rate because you're managing it. We have a rising positivity rate that tracks with the rising test rate. They're in absolute parallel. And in some places, like Houston, Texas, and Dallas, they're overtaking. The positivity rate is arcing up higher than the arc of the sheer numbers per capita of testing that they do. This is an asshole who can't read.
Probably around
This is unbelievably dumb.
Number, if we did it.
If you follow this guy or you think he's a good leader, you have either been suckered or so willfully ignorant that you will just praise at the feet of a fake billionaire because you believe the TV, or you're all in so he can replace RBG. That seems to be the only...
If we did another half of that, you'd have...
But most of you seem like you actually believe this bullshit.
Half the numbers, everyone...
Obama depleted the PPE and didn't replace it. Positive wasn't. Positive doesn't equate death. Fauci funded the left. House likes the left. Yeah, okay. So Price Wu, he didn't delete the PPE. Trump let it rot in storage. He didn't replace it.
Would be saying, oh, we're doing...
You're a sucker, and this is your boy.
So well on cases. But when I see it reported in the night, you can check me out on this. I mean, they're always talking about cases, the number of cases. Well, it is a big factor that we do. We have a lot of cases because we have a lot of testing, far more than any other country in the world. And it's also the best testing. Yeah, please.
The federal government is set to resume federal executions for the first time in more than a decade, potentially as soon as a couple of hours from now. Are you monitoring the last-minute appeals on that case?
Well, I think what I'm going to do is allow that to be answered by our Attorney General. Do you mind, Bill?
Yes, sir. We obviously monitor the appellate process.
And Mr. President, have you given any consideration to using your clemency powers to stop these executions and commute them to life sentences?
Well, I've looked at it very strongly, and in this particular case, I'm dealing with Bill and all of the people at Justice, and it's always tough. You're talking about the death penalty, but when you talk about people that did what this particular person did, that's tough also. So we're going to see what happens. Right now, they have a stay, I believe, right? They have a stay. And we'll let the courts determine the final outcome. And that's what's going to happen, okay?
You're asking Americans to have full faith in law enforcement. How do you respond to critics who say you undermined your own federal law enforcement agency, the DOJ, when you commuted the sentence of Roger Stone?
Well, if you look back on it, this was an investigation that should have never taken place.
Why wouldn't you say that about everybody who was pulled over? Couldn't the guy who is on death row right now say that at some point?
Guys like Comey, you have McCabe, you have Strzok, you have his lover Lisa Page, you have all of these people running around. You have Brennan and Clapper who lied to Congress. You have many, many people. You have people that changed documents going into the FISA courts. And it's a terrible thing, and this is an investigation that they said should have ended before it started. It shouldn't have started, and if it did, it should have ended.
It shouldn't have started. If only your people hadn't been coordinating with the Russians during the campaign and continuing to do so, and if you weren't still filleting Putin at every turn when we found out he's put bounties on our soldiers' heads. You have not answered a single question about this.
Immediately, because they found, as you know, as well as I do, they found nothing initially, but it went on for 2 years or longer.
Release the Mueller investigation's grand jury testimony then. If there's nothing there, I mean, honestly, if there's nothing there, all it's going to do is exonerate you. Give the unredacted documents to Congress then. I mean, honestly, how easy would this be?
And no, I did. I'm getting rave reviews for what I did for Roger Stone, and he
From who? Roger Stone?
frankly is going to go and now appeal his case. He had a jury forewoman who hated Roger Stone and who hated...
Why would he appeal his case? You mean appeal his conviction now that he's gotten clemency? He wants to go spend money doing that? Please do that. Lie in court in that situation, end up getting jail time for committing perjury.
Probably me, but she went on a false pretense, and he wasn't given a fair trial. It's not a fair trial. He wasn't given another trial. Should have been given another trial.
Sorry, who is in there saying that? Let me know.
I won't say more. I won't talk about the judge. I'm not going to. Why would I ever talk about a judge?
You do it all the time. You said one judge couldn't judge you fairly because of his Mexican heritage.
But this was a
Why would you ever talk about a judge?
Judge that gave, I believe, solitary
And by the way, he's going to talk about the judge. Why would I talk about a judge? Here I go.
confinement to Paul Manafort. Al Capone didn't have solitary confinement.
He had syphilis.
So these are things that happened. And if you look at President Bush, President Clinton,
Al Capone was in a medical wing of the prison most of the time because he had syphilis. Thanks, Bean Toast.
Obama, take a look at what they did. Frankly, it's a very unfair. Roger Stone was treated very unfairly, in my opinion, and so were many others on this side. In the meantime, you have the other ones who are admitted lying before. They admitted they lied before Congress. They leaked classified information, which is something you just can't do. And what are they doing? So we'll see what happens. But no,
Yeah, if it's evidence of a crime, whistleblowers have that right.
we're getting rave reviews for what I did. Okay.
No, you're not. Everybody thinks you're ridiculous. It's Monday, and everybody's already on to, oh, you just did this to mask the fact that you let these bounties slide. And you have known about the bounties for a year, and you've been begging everybody to let Putin back into the G7, and you were going to let him come anyways, even if he wasn't welcomed by the other countries, and just hang out and listen through the wall.
Are you going to be able to hold the convention in Jacksonville with all this virus spreading?
Well, we're going to see it built up a little bit, but we're going to do
It built up a little bit. It's a positive spin.
something that will be great. We think we're doing very well. We had some poll numbers a little while ago that are great. You know, it's the same story.
No.
It's suppression polls that we had in 2016, phony polls.
That's what it is. It's phony polls this time. She was within the margin of error last time. Biden isn't. You suck. You're losing Texas now.
Fake news, phony polls, same thing. And we're doing very well. We're doing well in Georgia. We're doing well in Texas. I read where I was 1 point up in Texas. I'm not 1 point up in Texas. We're many points up. I saved the oil industry.
Yeah, so I might have, let a bunch of you die, but the oil guys like me, and they vote plenty.
2 months ago, I saved the oil industry. There would have been, I created it. We became number one. We have
He created the oil industry. Okay.
millions of jobs, and we saved it, so Texas is not going to have to let go of millions and millions of people. Oklahoma, North Dakota, many states.
Any place with a cancer cluster around their water.
We're at $40 a barrel, and yet you can buy gasoline for under $2. Nobody's ever seen like that. So we have the biggest energy in the world. We're number one.
Yeah, that's because no one's driving.
In oil, as you know, oil and gas by far. We're now number one in the world. And we would have had millions of people out of work. I saved it. And then they say I'm leading by 1 point in Texas. They
Yeah.
said it last time, too. They said,
No, they didn't. You were 9 points up in Texas last time. Nobody thought Texas was in play last time. They didn't say the same thing last time.
Texas is too close
Paul,
to
thank
call.
you.
This was like 3 months before the election. And then I won Texas.
Meanwhile, Oklahoma and Idaho have had nothing but earthquakes since you've been sucking all the everything out from under the tectonic plates there.
This in a blowout. They called it the minute the polls closed. They said that about Utah. They said that about Georgia. They said the same
No, they didn't.
thing. That Georgia's, we can't, it's too close. They'll never be able to determine. We'll have to wait till election night. On election night, 2 seconds after the poll closed, they called Georgia. So, it's the same thing. We have
The red state.
Same thing. They're phony polls. They're suppression polls. But
They're suppression polls. That's why you had to file that cease and desist. They're trying to stop me.
think that after saving the oil and gas business and millions of jobs, I'm leading Texas by 1 point. I don't think so. Go ahead.
Do you think everybody in Texas only works in oil and gas? You think that just having a job in oil and gas makes people think that Biden's not going to keep us in the front as far as energy or oil production, like on a normal scale? Not over pumping, not drilling, and because if you drill in Dallas, in the Houston area or in Texas itself, you don't necessarily want us to open up areas in other states around national monuments and Yellowstone and shit like that. Because that's not your job. That's not your territory. If you keep drilling like Anwar, that helps the corporation. It doesn't help the workers in the oil and gas industry in Texas.
Is the China Phase 1 deal still intact, or is it? Do you see it in jeopardy?
It's intact. It's intact.
But the ink is still wet.
But I'm
not happy.
What China has done to the world with.
Yeah, it was a great deal you brokered. So, $50 billion in agricultural goods they're going to buy from our farmers after they needed $80 billion worth. They were going to buy anyways, but you managed to deal them down to 50, and instead of them paying it, we paid our farmers $68 billion. Farm bankruptcies are through the roof. Is it medications he takes? And so yeah, farm bankruptcies are through the roof, and we've dumped $6 trillion on the U.S. economy for a $50 billion deal. It's almost as stupid as getting rid of the pandemic response team that cost us $23 million, when the pandemic that hit will cost us in the end $8 trillion.
What took place? The China plague. You can go.
The China plague.
The China virus. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's about 20 different names.
COVID-19.
What they did to the world should not be forgotten. But
so phase 2 is off, is what you're saying. So there's no phase 3. What's phase 2?
It's intact. They're buying.
What is phase 2 at this point?
Whether they buy or not, that's up to them. They're buying.
What? Whether they're buying or not, they're buying. That's up to them. So it's not a deal. So it isn't signed. So phase 1 doesn't exist. What? Seriously, that was gibberish. Back up.
One deal still intact, or is it? Do you see it in jeopardy?
Let's hear this again.
Intact. It's intact, but I think what China has done to the world with what took place, the China plague, you can call it the China virus, you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's about 20 different names.
COVID-19. Got 19 different names, I thought. Did you add one?
What they did to the world should not be forgotten. But it's intact. They're buying. Whether they buy or not, that's up to them. They're buying.
Anybody know what the shit that is? Anybody know what he's talking about?
President, Los Angeles just announced that they are delaying the opening of their schools. New York already said they were going to delay them. Other school districts are giving parents the choice whether to send their kids to school or not. What do you tell parents who look at this, who look at Arizona where a school teacher recently died teaching summer school, parents who are worried about the safety of their children in public schools?
The schools should be opened.
That's it. I don't really, you just said schools open, closed, so I'm just going to say schools should be opened. Yeah, I agree. Schools should be open in general. There shouldn't be a pandemic. We should have had a pandemic response team that got a handle on this early. There should have been a better response. Schools should be open, but they can't be safely because you're a jackass.
Schools should be opened.
That's it. Okay, say it twice. That should solve it.
Kids want to go to school. You're losing a lot of lives by keeping things closed. We did the right thing. We saved millions of lives. We saved millions of lives when we did the initial closure.
No. The millions of lives number comes from doing absolutely nothing. Here was the scale. If the government does nothing and just lets it roll through, you're looking between 2.5 and 5 million deaths from COVID and a huge number of the population getting it. If you do full mitigation from the day they suggested it to the end of May, you keep the death rate around somewhere between 150,000 and 100,000 and 250,000 through the beginning of August. We've done large mitigation in big cities and almost no mitigation in smaller ones. So our number, because of the high population area, is actually working very hard and doing something about it, is teetering at 140,000, although it's underreported. By the time August, September roll around, the continuing arc up in areas where, like Arizona, Texas, all these other areas, that's going to bring the number up closer to 200,000. And we haven't finished the first wave yet.
Not done what we did, we would have had Mike and I were talking about it before, 2 to 3 million lives.
If you did nothing, if you had no functioning government, if you were a failed state, that's the number. You don't get to use that as an excuse. Like, you don't get to go, I always had the option to just hide and do nothing. Why is that okay? Why is that okay with any Trump supporter? Why is the argument that he could have just let it fly and let whoever was gonna die because 2.5 million to 5 million Americans? Why is it okay for him to shrug off those deaths with you? Why is that all right? Why are you okay with the deaths of 5 million Americans?
Lost, but we did that, so we're at about 100.
Because we had to. Fauci made me.
35,000, and we'll be at somewhat higher than that by the time it ends.
Yeah, it'll be somewhat higher than that by the time it ends.
And again, the vaccines are happening and the therapeutics are happening, but I'm not even talking about that. So
then why'd you bring it up?
Be at a somewhat higher, but we would have lost 2 million, 3 million lives.
If we did nothing, no mitigation, we'd have just let it roll. If we didn't treat people.
Not done it. Now we understand it also. We understand there are certain vulnerabilities. Young children. I was talking to Governor Murphy.
Oh, are we going to Jersey again?
And they have thousands of lives. I won't even say how many, just thousands of lives. Hard to believe in New Jersey. And he said there was only one life.
Yeah, under 18. Okay. You've been telling the same stupid story for 6 weeks.
It was 18 or younger. One person died, and that was...
Yeah, how many between the ages of 18 and 65, which is the window everybody thinks they're safe in, or 18 and 50? Tell us what that number is. Freak everybody out. Under 18? What do you think this is, Lord of the Flies? Just let everybody over 18 die off?
And a young man that had some medical difficulty. So when you think of that with thousands of lives and you have one person that was under 18.
Yeah. How many between the ages of 18 and 50? The people who run nearly everything.
That's something that tells you.
People who are old enough to serve in the military and vote and young enough not to be retired. What's that window of deaths? Because it's 52% of the deaths.
For some reason, I guess the immune system is much stronger with young people.
Okay, the cytokine storm aspect of it that destroys the lungs that people figured out early on has a greater effect on people who've been around a lot longer because your immune system tends to overreact as you're older because it's fought off a bunch of different diseases. Younger people haven't experienced those, and so their immune system is less apt to attack itself, attack your own cells, create these cytokine storms that kill you. It's not a mystery. He could say that. He could even say one of the reasons why younger people do well is because what's killing people is the cytokine storms. And we've learned that not using ventilators, but using, blood oxygenating machines and proning people, laying them on their stomach. Other treatments like that can keep the death rate down. But he doesn't even know that.
Than it is for others. So we have to watch the group that does have the difficulty, does have the problem. We all know what that is. We all
Yeah, go ahead. Who? You mean everyone in Florida?
know who they are, especially if they have a medical problem. If they have a medical problem, diabetes or heart or anything.
Diabetes or heart, or anything. If you have a heart, you're screwed, apparently. Dude, do you have any idea how many of your supporters have diabetes? Do you have any idea how many Trump fans have cardiac problems? How many of them are on blood thinners right now?
It's a big problem.
You're on them. What? Somebody just sent me the medications that he's on. He takes Crestor as a statin. He takes Propecia for baldness. He takes antibiotics because he has skin rosacea. He takes aspirin. I guess he takes baby aspirin for stroke, to prevent heart attacks and strokes. Takes Crestor for his cholesterol, and he takes Ambien to sleep. So you're going to tell me that this asshole takes Ambien to sleep, but he doesn't snort Adderall and speed to wake up again once he gets there?
But we're being very careful. But we have to open the schools. Would you agree with that? Do you agree? Yeah.
Who are you asking?
We have to open the schools. We have to get them open.
What, is there a lady across from him? Woman? Say that.
And I think there's a lot of politics going along. I think they think they'll do better if they can keep the schools closed in the election. I don't think it's going to help them, frankly, but I think they feel that.
You think people will be more apt to vote if they haven't been to the funeral of one of their relatives recently?
By keeping schools closed, that's a bad thing for the country, and therefore that's a good thing for them. But they're the ones whose cities.
By the way, Oprah in the chat room, check my Twitter feed and the date on the theme for 2020 being "Please Scream Inside Your Heart," and then check everybody else who said that following it.
Burning. I mean, can you imagine if the country was run like Chicago and like New York and like some of these other Democrat?
Chicago and New York are amazing places. They have a lot going for them. They have millions and millions of people in them. Millions. I mean, they're not, pork knuckle Montana.
Super radical left cities are run. You wouldn't have a country for very.
You mean the ones that have Wall Street in them? Where the Dow and the NASDAQ are? Where the most expensive real estate in the world is?
Long. And the economy would crash. So we just.
The economy would crash. Oh, yeah. Right. Like it did in 2008, Oh, wait. Who was president?
A brand new record today on NASDAQ again. This is now, I think, the 18th time since after the problem. So we have a new stock market high for NASDAQ, and the other ones are getting very close. When I came here, the stock market was up almost 500 points today.
Yeah, because it does not correlate to employment or wages.
Rebuilding jobs are being produced at a record pace. We've never had a pace like this.
No, these are not jobs being created any more than tests create the disease. You do not create jobs when people go back to the jobs that they had, and they still haven't done it.
And I will tell you if...
Let me tell you that if I fall down a flight of stairs, and then I walk halfway up the stairs, that's the same as flying up onto a second-story roof. It's the same thing. I'm basically 14 feet tall now. I mean, do the math.
Biden got in, this economy would be destroyed. He was in office for 48 years, and what he did was not great. Almost every decision was a wrong decision, and now he's going to come in and...
Yeah, like which ones? Bring them up. You hired Bolton.
And help us. We didn't need any help. We built the greatest economy in history, greatest economy we've ever had.
Oh, you skated on the one you were left.
Greatest economy the world has ever seen. And then the plague came in from China.
Why didn't you inherit a recession? Oh, right, because Obama fixed it with things like the auto bailout, which you were against.
And we start over.
You were against Tesla getting money in the auto bailout. How's Tesla stock doing right now?
Did the right thing. We had to close it down. Now we're opening it up. He can't do it. He doesn't have the capability to do it. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Who believes the guy proof? I don't. Stick around, Beverly. The facts are on my side. EJ Shaw, that's a matter of opinion.
Good luck with everything. Thank you.
Look at that. What'd I tell you? Round table, which means they go around, they say a story. There's no plan here. There's no, because a round table includes a discussion. Like, hey, we have this idea. What do you guys think would be the solution for this thing? Well, this might be going too far. This is, you know, this might be considered an overreach. Maybe we get this done and we do these kind of, you come up with an actual plan. That's what a round table is. He doesn't. This is a grievance circle. He comes out, parades a bunch of people, hides behind their skirts, and bitches at the press and leaves. There's no conversation. There's no policy that's going to be presented here or put forward. I mean, honestly, he's just leaving. I mean, clearly he has to go pee or something. He had to undo his belt buckle. Yeah, great job. See you later. Walking away. Yeah. Classy. Nothing. Nothing. This is just, I mean, it's just pitiful. Like, there's no plan. By the way, you know, his little visits to Southcom and stuff, they have turned these things, they've turned his little visits into campaign-style videos, and they have them on the White House website. Check this out. And they have him reread the speech that he gave, because you guys know we do these live when he actually does them. This is not him speaking at those events. He goes and reads them secondarily. They can't take his speech. The idea is like it's too jumbled and too, you know, he wanders. He doesn't stick to the text, right? So they do these. We'll do Binder Barbie, believe me. But look what they put together with this.
On the 1st of this year, I announced that the United States Armed Forces would begin a surge of military assets. Over the last 3 months, American service.
See, like they try to make it look like his mouth is actually saying the words because it's from the statement that he made, but he had to redo it in a little VO booth.
Members joined by partner nations have patrolled regional waters from the Caribbean Sea to the east.
By the way, this is just Project Murillo carried on.
Pacific.
It's the same stuff that's been going on forever. He's just pretending he invented it.
Taking the fight directly to the sinister criminal cartels.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
We're showing them no mercy. Our message is clear. You will not threaten our citizens. You will not poison our children. And you will not infiltrate our borders. On behalf of millions of American moms and dads, I want to express our country's pride and gratitude for your life-saving actions. As long as I am president, I will never...
See that? It doesn't match his mouth because he's not actually saying this. And could he read this with less vocal inflection?
Allow your sacred mission to be undermined or attacked in any...
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
I will not have open borders. We will not abolish the police. And we will not slash the budgets for our military. And we will not allow our country to be swamped with deadly drugs. We will defend our country.
With deadly drugs. And we will not allow the reading to be done with a single finger.
We will defend our borders, our children, our heroes, and our great American flag.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Look, they didn't even, like, they couldn't even end it right. Listen how it just kind of cuts off. Like, there's no swell. Hold on, I gotta back it up further.
Our children, our heroes, and our great American flag.
And our great American flag. Bump, bump, bump. There's no limit on this stuff. These are 59. They're trying to make it a minute. But, you know, I guess so they think it's going to take up some sort of ad space or whatever, even though they only put these on the White House website. They made one of the airplanes flying over with just music. Look at this. August 5th, Call of Duty Reborn. Call of Duty Flyby. Those don't have wings. I wonder what they call those. I remember Blue Thunder. Hi, Roy Scheider. I wish they would fly by the sun so I could stare into it again. They're all made of metal. How do they stay in the sky? Are they towing that one? Is that a kite? Oh, that's the Indiana Jones thing. Don't bomb me. Good job. They didn't even put the, like, there's no clapping in there. I don't know if you could put applause under this. I don't know why you wouldn't. But they just cut them with no sound clapping after that. Like, good job. Taxpayer money. There's your taxpayer dollars being spent. Oh, it's a joy. By the way, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And secondly, I want to thank all the trolls, bots, and wannabes who think they're scoring points by clamoring on in the chat rooms, because you guys boost my algorithm, and I appreciate it. Just remember that a thumbs down is worth as much as a thumbs up, and we can, you know, it's fairly easy for us all to ignore you, since all you want to do is flagellate your dictator and beg to lick the hem of his skirt after he wipes his Cheeto fingers on them. But I appreciate you guys for taking up space in, you know, on the internet for me, you know, because it's you pack the house. I gotta say, you're out there. There you are. Shall we look at? Let's see. Do I have time enough to do Kaylee? I don't know that I do. I know I shouldn't tell them that that none of these social media things care whether they like me or not. They just want the eyeballs. And so by showing up, they benefit me. It's like when they get into my Twitter feed and think they're making points. It's lovely. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys for trying as hard as you do. It's really adorable. Let's see.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, goodness. I don't know if I can show this outfit on, thank you, waiting for something. I don't know if I can show this outfit on YouTube and monetize. A little, I'm just saying, I don't think Mother would approve.
President Trump will participate in a rally.
There's an apostrophe in your, Joe. Thanks. Bye.
Table to hear stories of families positively impacted by law enforcement that will be taking place shortly after this briefing concludes.
Yeah, we already saw that.
The president stands with our police officers, our men and women across this country who valiantly patrol our streets.
Valiantly.
And protect our citizenry. This president stands on the side of law and order to secure
a place in the campaign for Roger Stone as soon as he has his guilty plea and his guilty charges held, I guess, because he just he commuted his sentence. He didn't pardon him, although you have to admit guilt to be pardoned. And I think, yeah.
Peace in our streets, that has always been his priority and remains.
His peace in our streets has always been his priority, which is why you defend the marchers in Charlottesville. Is that why?
So today, tragically, this weekend we saw a devastating ambush attack against brave law enforcement officers in McAllen, Texas. Officer Edelmiro Garza Jr., who was 45 years old, and Officer Ismael Chavez, who was 39 years old. And while responding to a domestic disturbance call, Officers Garza and Chavez arrived on scene to protect the people that they serve. They were met with gunfire. They were ambushed by a violent and dangerous suspect who horrifically shot before they even drew their weapon or had a chance to call for backup. We honor the lives and the service of officers.
Yeah, we do. That's happened a bunch, actually. There's been a bunch of those situations. Ask the Young Turks about Gavin Long, by the way. But I noticed you guys weren't bringing them up until you were flagging in the polls.
Officer Garza and Officer Chavez, this president will always stand on the side of law enforcement and the heroes who protect and serve. And with that, I'll take questions. Rita.
Hey, Kaylee, thanks so much.
No problem.
As the number of cases and fatalities continues to break records, in the most recent interview President Trump did, he said, we are going to be in really good shape in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Can you share what evidence he's using to draw that conclusion? And
That's adorable. Evidence. Oh, it's a good one. Well done. Wait, Jeff.
what is the administration going to do differently in the next 2 to 4 weeks to stop the spread?
So
Nothing. As a matter of fact, they're going to switch to herd immunity. He's just decided that the Swedish system is worth it.
one thing I would note is that when you look at the mortality rate, we're seeing that our efforts here at the federal government have been working. And to give you an example of that, when you look at New York and New Jersey, there were 21 deaths for every 1,000 cases, 20 deaths for every 1,000 cases in the case of New Jersey. Those were the ratios we were seeing just a few months ago. Now New York and New Jersey are down 1.7 per 1,000 and 1.8 per 1,000 respectively. And moving beyond New York and New Jersey, we're seeing in Florida, for example.
That's because you're not just testing the people who are going to the hospital, you're testing people who are positive. You're not creating cases, you're finding cases. But that doesn't change the volume of the dead. It just plateaus it.
Though they have 12 cases for every 1,000, it is 0.2 mortality for every 1,000 cases. In
Yeah, everybody else just needs a lung transplant or new kidneys.
Arizona, 0.3 deaths for every 1,000 cases. So we are seeing that our therapeutics are working, that dexamethasone and convalescent plasma and remdesivir are working, and that's something good and it's something that the president takes note of.
Yeah, dexamethasone, which came from the UK. The National Health Service of the UK discovered that had efficacy, and remdesivir was found to be useful in South Korea. Yeah, and convalescent plasma has been used worldwide for a lot of different infections and viruses.
4 weeks is such a short time period. I mean, what specifically are you doing?
Nothing.
To stop the spread?
There's a lot, and I'm very glad that you asked that because it is worth highlighting the work that we're doing each and every day. For one, we're surging personnel to Arizona, Texas, California. We already have people working in Florida, surging remdesivir to states that are seeing rising case numbers. We're also surging testing supplies to decrease turnaround time. These are several action items that Dr. Birx briefed me on before coming out here.
You're surging them now? Now a warning?
The White House will be going to several states this week, Dr. Birx in particular, to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. We've sent 19 HHS teams to metroplexes, 8 more.
You mean where cases are spiking?
That's
like saying we have great fire departments. That's why we're deploying all of our trucks right now.
Week. So we are aggressively on the ground reacting to this fire.
We don't have a fire problem because all of our fire trucks are out and we're making more fire trucks.
And we're encouraged to see the declining mortality compared to a few months ago. Jim, I haven't seen you in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Glad you're back.
Thanks. Kaylee, why is the White House trashing Dr. Fauci and sending out opposition research like memos to reporters? The president has gone off on anonymous sources in the past. Why not have the guts to trash Dr. Fauci with your own names?
So President Trump, I'll refer you back, there's no opposition research being dumped to reporters. We were asked a very specific question by the Washington Post, and that question was, President Trump noted that Dr. Fauci had made some mistakes, and we provided a direct answer to what was a direct question.
Hasn't the president made mistakes? He suggested at one point that Americans inject themselves with disinfectants, that sort of
Don't forget light bulb up the ass. We got to find some way to get light inside the body. That's a, can't just do that. I mean, I guess you could do it at home. You really want to get a professional,
Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time? Moon River.
Why not send out these notes to reporters about what Dr. Fauci said in the past with your names on it? They were sent out by a White House official. The president has said he doesn't trust anonymous sources, and yet you were sending out these notes to reporters anonymously.
Look, I would note that in terms of the president and his record on coronavirus, he stands by the actions and the steps he's taken in this historic response. You have Dr. Fauci, who said that the record of this president is impressive. I can't imagine that under any circumstance that anybody could be doing more, and those are the words of Dr. Fauci. We provided a direct response to a direct question.
Yeah, from when? January?
And that's about it. And to the notion that there's opposition research and that there's Fauci versus the president couldn't be further from the truth. Dr. Fauci and the president have always had a very good working relationship.
Just a separate subject very quickly. Does the president or the administration plan to make it very clear to the Russian Federation that there should not be bounties placed on the heads of American soldiers serving in Afghanistan?
We make that clear each and every day to every country around the world that...
I don't think the president, like the prime minister of New Zealand, needs a phone call. We don't have any plans to take your bounties. I don't know why you have to call us about that. You might want to talk to Russia about that, but thanks for calling. I mean, appreciate it. By the way, we have no cases. Click.
This president will always stand by our law enforcement. No one's been tougher on Russia.
Law enforcement? What do you mean, cops on the ground in Afghanistan?
I'm talking about military soldiers, U.S. forces
of course,
overseas.
that's what I'm saying. Our U.S. forces.
Not just any country, the Russians. Will you tell the Kremlin and President
but what
Putin?
you're getting at.
Jim, settle down, man. They go in alphabetical order. We have to call Argentina and tell them not to. And then once we get to, Rhodesia and Romania, do we call Italy and call them the Romans, or do they in the seas? We can call them twice, right? Because the Vatican would be under V. We'll figure it out.
Not to put bounties on the heads of American
What
soldiers.
you're getting at, of course, we tell each and every country that.
Each and every country that. We're like, don't put bounties on our soldiers. Mr. Trump, this is Boris Johnson. I'll basically blow you every time I'm on television. I don't know why. Well, I have to say that to everybody. Otherwise, Pooey Poot gets all mad.
What you're getting at is uncorroborated intelligence, and you're treating it as if it were true. To this day, there are varying views on the Russian bounty intelligence. DOD, NSC, and the ODNI all pointing that out. I'm not going to answer a question based on unverified intelligence, but rest assured, every country in this world is put on notice that bounties on the heads of U.S. troops is unacceptable, and this president will stand for U.S. troops at home and abroad. Yes.
Yeah, well, sort of. If they're all in, if everybody gets together for a class photo, we'll tell them.
Thank you, Kaylee. You mentioned a quote from Dr.
Okay, guys, got you all here in this room. Nobody take out bounties on any of our troops, okay? Deal? Okay, cool. Hey, what did he just say? I was in the bathroom. I didn't hear any of it. Some bullshit.
Fauci, another quote from him. When you compare us to other countries, I don't think you can say we're doing great. Is there any reaction to that from the White House?
When you compare us to other countries, we have the most testing in the world. When you compare us to other countries on case fatality rate, other industrialized nations, we're very low and beating.
No, we're not. Not even per capita.
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
Most countries, if not all, in Europe. So we're doing a lot on the world stage, a lot right. Noted that we were supposed to have a ventilator shortage, and as it turned out, the U.S. actually sent ventilators all around the world. So the U.S. response.
Yeah, because ventilators turn out to be a bad treatment source. They're actually oxygenating blood. There's another machine we need that isn't a ventilator that would be more worthwhile. And plus, people in New York were sharing ventilators. and getting double doses of the virus.
Has been historic, and by several metrics, including the 3 I just mentioned, we're beating the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Kaylee, could you just clarify the scope of Roger Stone's clemency? A federal judge is asking for this. Does it only apply to prison time, or does it also include the 2-year period of supervised release?
I don't have the exact details for you on that, but I can follow up. What I will say is that the Roger Stone clemency was a very important moment for justice in this country. You had
Was it now?
a completely bogus
you, Elaine.
Russia witch hunt that found nothing, and in order to just
Oh, it found nothing. Oh, is that why Manafort's in jail? Because they found nothing? If they found nothing, release all of the grand jury testimony from the Mueller investigation to Congress. Easy. Thank you, an ECMO machine. Thank you, Karine.
the waste of taxpayer dollars. You had Robert Mueller charging people with process crimes, and it's really curious.
You mean process crimes like lying to the FBI and lying to investigators to hide further crimes? Or you just want, like, for law and order in this country, we're just going to not make that illegal anymore?
To me that with Roger Stone, he's charged of false statements, but McCabe was charged of false statements, lying to federal investigators. Brennan, false statements to Congress. Clapper, false statements to Congress. But last
Yeah, no. Open session versus closed session.
time I checked, they didn't have 29 FBI agents wearing tactical gear, showing up at their house in a pre-dawn raid, wielding M4 rifles, sweeping across their lawn, as happened to Roger Stone. They didn't.
Yeah, because he and Manafort both had on-site evidence they were disposing of.
Have 4 agents using battering rams breaking down their front door over false statements, and they didn't have helicopters hovering over their houses and 2 police boats that roared up. Instead,
roaring police boats. Hey, look, didn't we just hear a bunch of stories about how the military has to do a lot of really tough stuff, and they need to get room to do that, and it's unfair the way they're treated?
McCabe and Clapper and Brennan and these guys are given lucrative contracts, books, contributorships. So there are really 2 standards of justice in this country, as Adam
Are there?
noted. Fortunately, he doesn't have the facts to back up the way he meant that term. Mario?
One more question,
Yes,
if I could. The president retweeted something this morning implying that he believes that he retweeted something saying that the CDC is lying about the coronavirus in order to hurt his chances of getting reelected. Does the president believe that the CDC is lying about COVID-19?
Of course he believes
The president, with his intent in that retweet, expresses displeasure with the CDC, some rogue individuals leaking guidelines prematurely. You had a 63-page
Rogue CDC officials. It's always been a problem in the administration, or in any administration, really. I mean, honestly, rogue.
plan that was leaked prematurely. He believes that misleads the American public when there are planning materials released that are not in their fullest form and their best form. So that's what he was getting at. But overall, the notion of the tweet was to point out the fact that when we use science, we have to use it in a way that is not political. When you had 1,300 health experts sign a letter not to condemn large crowds of protesters, but some same health experts say churches need to stay shut down, or lockdown protests somehow don't get the same.
I just watched a compilation of people on MSNBC, of all places, going, there's a ton of people in these protests not wearing masks. It's very dangerous. Are people concerned about the contagion branching forward? And by the way, the spike in cases can be tracked to largely to places that have not had lockdowns or refuse to do it, and the Trumpsters that push back, like the Tulsa super spreaders, and the protesters and rioters who didn't wear masks. Both a bad idea. The difference is you can't stop people's First Amendment rights by rounding them up in the street because they are spontaneously gathering. But you could say non-spontaneous gatherings are a bad idea and should be put on hold temporarily for the safety of everyone else involved. See, a street corner where a bunch of assholes gather to scream and throw rocks is not a regular gathering, or shouldn't be expected to. And so you can't just pick up where you left off in a couple of weeks after the contagion goes. It's usually to address a specific grievance, and if it isn't, it's just street violence. A church or a classroom or any of these regular gathering places, you can put on pause and stagger out and say we could find other options for getting together. because we give a shit about the lives of the people going.
First Amendment rights as the protest that we saw in our streets. We need to use science, lean into science, but not use it and cherry pick it to fit whatever our particular political persuasion is.
So he has confidence in the CDC?
He does, Mario.
Thank you, Kaylee. Given what we're seeing in Florida with the cases rising, is the president anticipating a scaled-down version of the convention next month? And if so, is that something that he would be content with?
Like Tulsa scaled down, or round table in the East Room fart fest?
That would be a question for the campaign, but we still plan to move forward with the convention here at the White House. But for particular,
There's going to be a convention at the White House?
I would point you to the RNC and to the campaign. Yes.
Just to close the loop on Dr. Fauci, does the president still appreciate the advice that he gets from him?
Certainly.
Why is your what's the wickerization of your mask? Did you fold it in, are you just trying to tighten it up? Was it getting loose and you just is this just the rakish way? Is this the old-fashioned reporter style way of like tilting your hat to one side?
Dr. Fauci is one of many on the task force who provides advice, and I would note, Dr. Fauci,
along with Wilbur Ross and Steve
he's
Mnuchin.
an epidemiologist, an infectious disease expert, and he provides his opinion there. You also have other experts like Dr. McCann's Katz, who are behavioral health experts who
You have some cats helping with this?
provide opinions about the holistic health of the child, and she's been a voice for reopening schools and the damage long-term lockdowns can do. You have Dr. Mansaf Salah.
It was the last 2 months of one school year. Then we went into summer break, which is the same length it always is. They still had, my kid's still doing online classes. And then they may or may not go back for the first semester of the fall. It hasn't been 2 years. Kids aren't going to forget how to write.
Who's working on the vaccines. So there are a number of scientists who are experts in various issues and various specialties, but the president takes the full opinions of the task force and the varying opinions sometimes.
Which one will raise the stock market the most?
And moves forward in a way.
How those protests have gone down every night, weak argument against spontaneous street protests? No, they've been going down in numbers since they spontaneously happened after the George Floyd thing. They haven't continued at the same level. I don't know what you mean.
Thinks is best for this country, like he did with the China travel ban.
The China travel ban. Oh, you mean the one he did after 40 other countries did it, and China stopped people coming out of Wuhan, and they locked everybody down. They were sealing people in apartments. And all 3 major American airlines had stopped flights from China into the United States. You mean after that, when he put on a China ban and 40,000 people continued to come into the country, and a bunch of other people, as long as they came through another country before coming into the United States? You mean like that?
The travel ban with Canada expires in about a week. Is that going to be extended, or are you talking with Canada about that?
So no announcements now for our plans with Canada.
Yes, Arizona has more new cases of coronavirus than any country in the world, more than the European Union as a whole. So isn't by that metric the United States not doing as well as other countries in handling this?
No, because when you lead the world in testing, that means that you identify more cases.
Deaths are starting to
And
rise.
I would note, well, you talk about deaths. I can give you that particular information.
Please do. Please tell us how well South Korea did. They've got 50 million people. Tell us how Arizona is doing better than South
Which
Korea.
Dr. Birx gave to me.
With its, 9 million people? 12? How many people are in Arizona? We don't know.
Before running out here, which is in Arizona, you have 17 cases per 1,000 population and 0.3 deaths per population, which means our therapeutics are working, and we're in a better place today than we were before.
Shirley Bird, a school teacher in Arizona, died, however, when she was following all the rules. She wore a mask, she wore gloves, she was teaching summer school, she got it, died. 2 other teachers got it and are ill. Her family, her husband, her daughter. I mean, how do you tell parents of school children that it's safe to send their kids back to school when something like that happens?
Well, I would point you to the words of the CDC director who said
There are the same number, 7.2 million people in all of Arizona, which, by the way, is the population of LA County.
Children are not very affected by this and typically are not spreaders in this, but I would also point to the consequences of staying closed. We have to look at the holistic health of the child, and when you have, according to HHS, 1/5 of all child abuse cases being reported by teachers and educational staff, we cannot stay closed. When you have DC family...
Huh? No. Send Child Protective Services out. Again, go through the records, see who was targeted, talk to the teachers, who's on the short list of probably suffering abuse, and send people out. You don't get everybody sick or spread a contagion because you don't want to do the extra work.
A child.
What? If you worry about this, then solve that. Schools are not autopilot for stopping sexual and physical abuse. They're integral only because kids spend so much time there. If you're saying that the government of Arizona, which traditionally goes Republican, if you think that they lean in the direction of allowing middle school and elementary school teachers to be the frontline workers against sexual assault for children, and that's okay with you, make that case then.
Agency talking about a 62% decrease in abuse cases being reported. You cannot stay closed. When even the AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, talked about morbidity and mortality if schools stay shut down, and 70 to 80% of children with mental health diagnoses receive their care in schools. The consequences are great.
That's because that's where the counselors are. Then set up counseling sessions with them. Either do it using, like telemedicine. They call it They call it tele. Set that up, which, by the way, are those folks going to return back to school at the same rate everybody else is? Are there going to be more of them? Are kids going to be seeing more counselors? Why not have a rush of counselors then into those situations the same way you do after a school shooting?
If we stay shut down. And there's a way for essential workers to go back to work, just as our meatpacking facilities did, just as you all in the media are essential workers. We believe our teachers are as well. Yes. Catherine.
Thanks, Kaylee. The administration has said that the goal of maximum pressure is to force Iran back to the negotiating table so we can get a better deal. Is that still the goal of maximum pressure? And in light of the reported new trade and military partnership...
And is she wearing a Chinese food box on her face? That's a heck of a mask.
...between Iran and China, what evidence is there that the policy is succeeding?
I have no information today to update you on our Iran relationship, which stays the same today as it has been. Yes, Daniel.
Okay, I have two quick questions.
I don't have a plan on Iran. We've just ignored that. It was the greatest threat in the world and total danger. And now we've moved on to something else because it isn't working.
So President Trump's former chief...
The president has no plan, so the best way for you to think he has a plan is for us to pretend that there's a plan already in place and we're doing the plan, even though we have no plan.
Staff Mick Mulvaney, who still has a role in this administration, he said in an op-ed today that we still have a testing problem in this country and that he and his son have to wait for 5 to 7 days for results. If even President Trump's former chief of staff levels this criticism, doesn't that indicate we do have a problem with testing? Do you have a reaction to his op-ed?
Yeah, our reaction is that we've tested, we lead the world in testing. We've done more than 40 million tests. That's an extraordinary number.
It's not a blood test. You don't find it out and it's final. Anybody who gets a test can need a test the next day. One of the reasons why we have the high volume of tests we have is that people have to get tested repeatedly in essential services. Hospitals test regularly. We haven't tested 45 million Americans. We've tested the same 12 million Americans 5 times.
Admiral Joie gave us an update yesterday that on Friday we did over 800,000 tests. We tripled, quadrupled the number of tests. This is his exact quote. We also have 12,000 retail test sites that are there, and we're surging testing in basically every specific county that's having a problem.
Well, are we? Or are governors doing that?
And Dr. Burke
on their own because the president told them that he's not a shipping clerk.
Was just walking me through pooled testing, which will be a way to process tests at an even faster rate. So leading the world in testing, I would say, means we're doing a pretty good job. Deborah.
By the way, what do you think the odds are that this chick doesn't know a ton of people who homeschool their kids regularly? and think it's just fine, if not superior.
Have a reaction to the Washington Redskins dropping their name today?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I haven't talked to him since the specific announcement's been made. I have talked to him, but not specifically on that. But last week, his tweet made it clear that these teams name their teams out of strength, not weakness. And he talked about the Washington Redskins and Cleveland Indians looking at changing their names. And he says that he believes that the Native American community would be he does have polling to back him up. There was a Washington Post poll from a few years ago that 90% of Native Americans say they're not offended by the name. It is reflective of a 2004 poll, and the Washington Post notes that many of these Native Americans voiced admiration for the team name, like Barbara Bruce, who said, "I'm proud of being Native American and of the Redskins. I'm not ashamed of that at all. I like that name." Gabrielle Nez, another 29-year-old from the Navajo community, "I really don't mind it. I like it." And they're
God.
several other comments like this in the Washington Post.
Kaylee.
Deborah.
Thank you, Kaylee. I have a question myself, and then as a principal, I'd like to ask a question
Can we change them to the Washington Barbies?
from a news organization that can't be here because of social distancing.
That's the social distancing, my colleague can't be here chair.
My question.
By the way, I don't believe that 2004, thank you for every heartless from this woman's mouth today. Oh, for God's sake, Templeton's a rat. No
In
kidding.
February, when he was in Las Vegas, speaking to Hope for Prisoners, the president said he didn't want to use his pardon power on Roger Stone because he thought he could be exonerated. That didn't happen, and the president commuted his sentence. During the same event, the president said that he might give a full pardon to John Ponder, a convicted bank robber who served his time, turned his life around, and started Hope for Prisoners.
Sheila, yes. To all the Republicans who are going to have chosen an off-ramp from this insanity and are going to vote against Trump this fall and vote for Biden, I appreciate you. I thank you. I give you that off-ramp. We all have room for growth. Congratulations. And at one time in the future, you want to run a conservative who isn't an insane cases, literally creates them was his word. Testing creates cases. Then run that person and I will hear out your arguments. Okay? We will probably disagree on all of it. But for the time being, all you Lincoln Project psychopaths, welcome aboard.
Is there going to be a pardon for John Ponder? And what about the more than 1,300?
How about the Washington Caucasians or the Washington Crackers? Crackers isn't bad. I prefer animal names overall, you know? Bengals, that kind of thing, like the kind of tigers, you know. Raptors is a little 90s, you know what I mean? But I get that.
Pardon application sitting in the pardon attorney's office. Because there's talk now that people don't go to the pardon attorney's office, they go through the White House. Is that a good thing, or does it mean that only politically connected people can get pardons?
Of course.
No, I have no
That's exactly what that means.
update on John Ponder. It's absolutely not the case that only those who are politically connected get a pardon. This president is the president of criminal justice reform. This president did the First Step Act. This president has fought.
He signed the First Step Act. He didn't write it.
For
it passed because the Democrats had the House.
Those who are given unduly harsh sentences more than any Democrat who liked to talk about it but never actually did it. And in fact, when you compare the pardoning record of this president with past presidents, it's quite striking that this president's given 36 pardons and commutations. President Obama gave 1,927. And when you
see that? So there were, even in the biggest fantasy of all, there weren't 2,000 people that Obama was engaged in criminal activity with. That's the whole point. He was having people review cases. He was having non-violent drug offenders and people who had committed crimes when they were minors removed. All those kind of things. This president is the only ones he hasn't done that are directly related to his criminal activity are ones that he did for press because Kim Kardashian came by the White House.
At the nature of some of the pardons given, let's say, under President Clinton, you talk about politically connected pardons. We can't get more politically connected with pardons than pardoning your brother, Roger Clinton, as President Clinton did. Susan McDougal, one of your associates who was pardoned for her role in Whitewater. Mark Rich, who gave $450,000 to the Clinton Library, or at least his wife did, donated $1 million to Democrat campaigns.
Yeah, but what's the number of those people versus the number of people who've gotten them through Trump. The only ones are either the VIP ones that Kim Kardashian brought in person, or people who are directly related to the cases that involve the president. And they're getting paid off for their silence.
And then he gets a pardon from President Clinton, and notably,
yeah, in 8 years.
A lot of these pardons were when he was going out the door. So this
Yeah, guess what? Trump's going out the door.
presidents used it sparingly and instead focused on criminal justice reform, helping to rectify racial disparities in our sentencing. And Clinton and Obama appears did a whole lot of pardoning, and in some cases politically motivated, it seems, but didn't do a whole lot to help the innocent people who have served.
How many did Obama pardon again? How many? 1,900? He didn't do a whole lot to right unjust things. 1,900.
Their time and been given unduly harsh sentences.
I have a follow-up for someone who asked me to ask a question because of social distancing. This is from Jackson Richmond of the Jewish News Syndicate. What's the president's stance on Israel planning to apply sovereignty to parts of the West Bank and to Democrats? From Nancy Pelosi.
We don't really, I haven't talked to him about this. I'm thinking Washington Federals, HAL, but if you're thinking animals, I suggest naming the weasels so their owner can be the mascot. All right. The Federals isn't a bad idea. They'll call them the Feds, though, or whatever, and they'll all come out and, wear female body inspector shirts.
The AOC, who warned that such a move would undermine U.S. national security and the U.S.-Israel alliance.
So I have no update today on the current status, but just other than the president has been a strong
We're just going to let them do whatever they want.
supporter of Israel.
Right. That they're just going to, whether it violates international law or not, they're just going to let them do it.
Thanks, Kaylee. We're coming up on the 3-year anniversary of the president tweeting he banned transgender people from the military in any capacity, which led to the policy currently in place. Last week, a group of 116 lawmakers led by Congresswoman Del Bene wrote the administration urging them to lift the policy. Would the president reconsider the policy?
I haven't talked to him about that specific policy, but this president is proud that in 2019 we launched a global initiative to end the criminalization of homosexuality throughout the world. He has a
Yeah. Third White House in a row to do that.
great record when it comes to the LGBT community. The Trump administration eased a ban on blood donations from gay and bisexual men, and he launched
Oh, did they?
a plan to end the AIDS epidemic by 2030. So we're
Nonetheless,
very
but
proud of our
nonetheless,
achievement.
What does that have to do with their ability to serve in the military?
The ban on...
Why does that preclude them from, if all those things are true and you're for those things, then why can't they serve in the military?
People in the military is still in place. We have a Supreme Court ruling that anti-trans discrimination is a form of sex discrimination. We have an estimated 14,700 people in the military who identify as transgender. We have a poll showing upwards of 70% of Americans support transgender service. And we have major medical and psychological groups saying there's no problem with transgender people in the military. So what is the reason for having the policy currently in place?
I have no updates for you, but several of the events that you cited, like the Supreme Court ruling, I would refer you back to Justice Kavanaugh, who said we are judges, we're not members of Congress. Instead of a hard-earned victory won through the democratic process, today's victory is brought about by judicial dictates. So we'll always stand on the side of correct statutory interpretation.
You just made up your statutory interpretation. That's what he's asking you about. It was capricious and stupid.
Katie, thank you very much. Can you really say that the rise in testing accounts for the rise in the number of cases? Because the percentage of those testing positive has risen sharply.
Yeah, there's that whole that is the rub, isn't it? Now, it's wonderful that you bring it up, and I appreciate that. I also think that's a rather subtle tie. I mean, it blends well with the purple jacket, but it's the white shirt is a sharp contrast. I mean, and it is professional. I understand where you're coming from, but it's the flecks are a nice touch.
Well, I would say to this, as we've always said, that there would be embers, there would be fires. So
Embers and fires. He's talking about a spike in positive rates.
We readily acknowledge
everywhere
the embers
in 40 states.
The fires that are around the country, but we also note that it's logic, basic common sense. When you're testing more than any country in the world, you're going to identify more cases. We've tested more than 40 million. That means we will identify more cases. But when you see the fact that mortality has come down,
Trump doesn't say identify. He says creates. Go talk to them.
Per thousand population in a way that it was not months ago in New York and New Jersey. It means that we have become very adept at our therapeutics and our ways of
Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
finding people in communities rather than in hospitals, catching things early, and moving forward in a way that we know how to aggressively attack this virus and keep the
Just
American
follow up
people
with
safe.
the travel ban.
Janelle.
Just can I ask you on the travel ban?
Sure.
What is the rationale now for keeping people from Europe, Ireland, and the UK from the United States when they have a fraction of the number of cases that you do in the US?
The argument is we will always put America first. Chanel.
Whatever that means.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Thank you, Kenny. If you will expand on the difference between this time last month and now when it comes to framing the discussion about law enforcement. Last month, the president hosted a law enforcement roundtable, and at that roundtable, he said that he would.
She's holding her OAN licensed laptop, and you know they gave it to her, and it's her business one because it has the bumper sticker for the network on it.
Not support defunding police, and yet 1 month later, we still have Democrat cities doing so, disbanding their police, defunding their police. How does the White House feel it should frame the debate now with regards to defunding the police so that a reasonable discussion can be had with these Democrat cities who are trying to do so?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We know
We didn't coordinate this at all before you came out. We're going to use the phrase defend the police when they say defund the police, and we think it's, we've tested it. Eric Erickson says it's a winner. Hal Sparks is pushing demilitarize the police, and it will probably be a meet in the middle.
Just the facts, ma'am.
that in Los Angeles, when they announced that they would be defunding their police department by $150 million, they basically immediately after saw a 250% increase in homicides.
Yeah, they didn't stop spending that money that day.
You have people out there like Representative Ilhan Omar saying we have to completely dismantle the police and police are our cancer. This is not how we should be talking about our heroes. You have
Agreed. Most of us don't.
most egregious.
By the way, tell us about Tucker Carlson's head writer. If you're going to start cherry picking people, then the most popular show on Fox right now, and the guy who Trump apparently listens to the most, called before his rally and said, "What do I do? What do I do?" His head writer was writing some gnarly stuff. Explain that.
Well, really, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying defund the police means defund the police. She criticized, of course, the announcement of $1.5 billion being taken down from NYPD. And this weekend, you know, when faced with there were 28 shootings in New York, 600% increase from this time last year. You have Representative Ocasio-Cortez saying this is just because people are trying to get food with their families. That is preposterous. The reality is 63% of Americans in this country fear that criticism of our police departments will lead to no public safety in their streets. And 69% of Black Americans, this is a real issue when you call our police cancer, when you talk about dismantling them. And then this weekend in New York, you see a 1-year-old killed in his stroller. His name was DeVell Gardner Jr. And that 1-year-old.
And we wouldn't have mentioned it at all if you hadn't brought that question up. And thanks for getting me out of the room, hiding behind a blue wall. Whoops.
Be in our prayers. Not only that, you see officers Garza and Chavez. And to your question about how we should talk about the police and defund the police, a movement the president stands against, the
Get
two
outta
officers ambushed this weekend. One of them, Officer Chavez's daughter, wrote a very touching tribute online. She said, "Words cannot describe the pain I'm in, but I'm glad my dad is at peace. You are an amazing man, and anyone who ever came across you knew that. I'm going to miss you so much. You died doing what you love most. You died a hero." And those touching words were written by Savannah Chavez. And I know she received vile and outrageous comments online that were absolutely atrocious for her touching sentiment to her dad. I want Savannah to know,
Which we're against, for the record.
your dad is a hero. His police department should never be defunded because most of our police officers are good, hard-working men and women and heroes.
I agree. Why are you allowing 135,000 Americans to die?
Much like Savannah's dad.
Why are you letting the Russians take out bounties on our soldiers? You see, cops doing their job and being decent members of society is a norm. It's often taken for granted, but it is a 95.5 scenario. So when you stand behind it, when you weren't before, or when you pretend to while you're letting people like Roger Stone out, I know that you're just doing it for your own crass political purposes, and you could give a shit about these people the rest of the time.
We'll be praying for you, Savannah. Thank you, guys.
We don't get to pray for you. Bye. Click. We did a long one tonight, and I'm going to take off. I have to work on the Sexy Liberal bits for the show this weekend. Join us. SexyLiberal.com is the website for the tickets. And thanks everybody for hanging out today, and thank you for the super chats, you guys. Thanks James and Templeton Zarat and Amber and Robert Perry and Elaine. Thank you so much. I think that may be a first or a second time for you, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much, Benny Loco. Always a pleasure. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe. She always reminds us as well. Beverly Brown, thank you. What'd I say? Melinda Campbell and Patricia Unruh and Rebecca Barwig and Bean Toes, thank you. And Brian, as always, thank you. Megan and Raphael and Mary Sealhorse. And thank you, Christina F. Thank you. Appreciate it. And we're going to, so I will be on my regular time tomorrow. I'm going to keep these relatively tight. Like you said, I only went 45 minutes over. And I still got to be shooting till 2 o'clock in the morning tonight for these pieces for the weekend. No time like the present. But you guys are awesome. I will see you soon. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And remember, to all the right-wingers and the Trump-sucking saps, understand this. On this channel, in this place, we support our flag and our democracy and our system of government and our soldiers and our police officers. We just do it in the realm of reality. We don't use them as human shields to protect our own criminal enterprises. And we don't molest the flag or wipe our ass with it to try and fake patriotism. You understand? And even though my only concern about you voting is that when you use the little punch thing, you might put your eye out because if you're a Trump voter, you might be that stupid. I still want you to vote, and I still want you to be alive come voting time. So wear a mask, cough into your elbow or sneeze into your elbow if you have to. Clean all your common surfaces. Don't go out unless you absolutely need to. Don't congregate in groups. Aerosolized droplets of this can stay in the air for up to 20 minutes. You can walk through somebody's cloud and catch it, even if you're doing everything right. So, look, I may think you're an immoral, moronic, disgusting, more than likely smelly person who wears a Confederate flag with pride, even though it's a symbol of sedition and antithetical to the United States, and it's the equivalent of waving the Japanese flag at Pearl Harbor on December 7th every year or something, or wearing a Nazi flag, for example. Even with all that, don't die, go vote. We're all Americans. I want you to live long enough to regret your idiocy and grow up a little bit. How do you like that? And by the way, and thank you again for your eyeballs and the boost to the algorithm, because we're a growing channel, so it really helps. It really helps. And anyways, take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. Again, reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a little bit that might be, not hearing from as many people as they might normally. An old friend, somebody who's, just kind of in the periphery of your life. Reach out, tap them on the shoulder digitally, and let them know, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're okay. I'm normally on 3 to 5 p.m. every single day, Pacific time. And then Saturdays, my radio show, an old-fashioned terrestrial radio show, 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, 11 to 1 Central time out of Chicago. And there you go. And when I go to the screen, it shows all that. And I will see you guys this time tomorrow. You're wonderful. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
We've got entirely too many troublemakers here.
Well, let's
It's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaverate, who run everything in the world, including the newspapers, and meet tri-annually at a secret country mansion in Colorado known as the Meadows.
So who's in this Pentaverate?
The Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up.
I feel like a Kentucky Fried Idiot.
I was thinking of the immortal words of Socrates, who said,
Nice. Nice. Not thrilling, but nice.
Something strange happened to me this morning.
was it a dream where you see yourself standing in sort of sun god robes on a pyramid with 1,000 naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at you? No. Why am I the only person that has that dream?
I'm dead sexy.
All I'm offering is the truth. I'm telling you straight. It's my way or the highway. So anybody wants to walk, do it now.
Groovy.
I'm rich and I'm dead sexy.
Call me Snake.
I'm your huckleberry.
I'm just a happy camper.
Groovy.
Hail to the king, baby.
It's good to be the king.
Bring out Jadid! Bring out Jadid!
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
You have nobody guarding your potatoes.
And you know, when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Carrot.
A lot of very bad things are happening in Nicaragua.
Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
You using the whole fist, Doc?
Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
Salty! He thinks I made it up.
Unbelievable.
Salty!
The sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Who wants some? Who's next?
See this? This is my boomstick!
Wah-wah-wee-wah!
Just follow the money.
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it.
Was that you should always take responsibility for your actions, unless you don't have to.
I got a vomit molasses! That's great psychology. Why don't you just say something bad about my mother?
That was really cool, by the way.
We need you. Hell, I need you. I'm a mess without you. I miss you so damn much. I miss being with you. I miss being near you. I miss your laugh. I miss your scent. I miss your musk. When this all gets sorted out, I think you and me should get an apartment together. What do you say we cut the chit-chat a-hole?
A chat with you and somehow death loses its sting.
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell? Butthole! Butthole!
I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading but two things right now. Jack and shit. And Jack left town.
Would you classify that as a launch problem or a design problem?
That was really cool, by the way.
Shop smart, shop S-smart.